I guess, right?
Yeah, for clips and reels and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So okay, yeah, I see you have your social media training.
I,
Yeah,
I am always learning pretty much. I
you
think,
set. Yeah,
yeah, we're not
you-
connected yet. Oh,
yeah.
we're connected now. We can act like we've never used any modern technology before. Hello, Lan D. Ho. How are you?
Hey there, happy to be here. Long time listener, first time caller.
Yeah. Oh, really? That's. I'm glad you're out there.
Yeah,
um, thanks. Yeah, thanks for coming on. I feel like it's always fun to do this, and I think that'll maintain through this one. This is likely to be a fun to above average fun call for anyone who's joined us today. Lan, who are you? How do I know you?
uh, we met in Chicago. We met in person October 1997 at Pro Tour Chicago, where your best friend Randy Bueller, right, won the
I
Pro
think
Tour.
he is a friend. He has been good to me over the years, and he's coming out pretty
Oh,
soon. He is already
look at
on
that!
the series.
Look at that! I'm glad to have jumped him in the queue though. So, and
Oh
then
well,
where
yes. I'm not going to say further. Continue.
Yeah, and then where a deck that you designed got second, sixth, and ninth, I think, right?
Yeah, it was a good
Which,
tournament for
yeah, I thought it was a
for
great deck.
a lot of people.
But we met there, but we were friends from the IRC.
Yeah, IRC is
Yeah,
important. The internet mattered even then.
yeah, and it began like a weird year where both you like a weird calendar year where both you and John Finkel spent several weeks at my apartment sleeping on the floor. So
Yes.
yeah, and then you both went on to achieve like real Magic success shortly afterward. So
That
like
is true.
I mean like John immediately after like leaving my apartment won Pro Tour New York, and then you qualified for the Pro Tour, but then got a job at Wizards shortly after that. You
I remember
re-qualified
this.
for the Pro Tour. Let me be straight
Yeah,
about that. Yeah,
I
yeah,
was qualified for two of the next pro tours. I won a qualifier when I visited you.
yeah. In
Um,
Lubbock.
yeah, to be clear, Albert Burkhead, I definitely did not design it for David Mills. My brother actually was in the top eight. David just
You know.
happened to reap the rewards despite the fact
Oh,
I wouldn't have given it to him myself.
he also made two buffoonish changes to the deck, but because he got
Yeah.
second, that's considered to be like the standard version now. For
He
those
was a
keeping
clever,
track,
clever guy. He was a
for those
clever
keeping
guy.
track, yeah, he took out. He went down to two force wheels from four force wheels, and he replaced them with one disrupt and one desertion. So
Yeah, Dave Mills and I aren't enemies, but we're never friends either. So when you say I made it for David Mills, I disagree.
it's kind of like yeah, you make a gun when someone uses it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot like that in this case. That's how it feels. It's a great metaphor. Yeah, I Chicago was a really fun tournament. I did you play? I remember like other people from Austin playing in that tournament and doing well. Did you like? What did you finish? Did you play?
I did not play. My first tournament was actually LA '98, like later that March, so about 5 months later,
Hmm.
right? Where I worked with you and CMU, like me and Kibler did, and
Hmm.
where I think Randy got 11th, you got 16th.
Yeah, I got 11th and he got 16th,
Oh
but
yeah,
that just means that
so
we paid out more in the split. We were the ones who
yeah.
paid out during
Well,
that
that was
tournament.
yeah
Yeah.
that was just a softball for you.
It's all right. I can't remember either.
Yeah, I got 21st and Kibler got 61st. So
Yeah, it was a really like that red deck was probably better than the green deck. I thought it was really great. Like
it
Eric, it was
was
an Eric Lauer design for sure.
yeah, it was really good. We were kind of like there were some things we were missing, but we had like ancient like when me and Bill Macy were just kind of tooling around with red and ancient tomb, we had like lightning elemental. But I think it was actually the original version had giant strength, but then the night before you changed them, uh, two or three of them to lowland giants, which were
Oh yeah,
significantly better, right?
yeah,
Significantly
yeah.
better than the giant strengths would have been. Although giant strengths were great in that tournament, they just weren't right in the deck that we played.
Yeah, the CMU team was really big on the card Ancient Tomb, which has since become incredibly popular and well loved. But at the time, it was not considered a constructed card. No one thought it was going to be useful at all. And so we were out there rampaging, leveraging that card a lot. It was it was a really fun tournament. I was initially working with you and Brian, and then I joined up with Randy and company. I was on the IRC, and I was like, "Hey, Randy, like, I think this environment is all about red." And he was like, "I think it's all about red too." And I was like, "Good, I'm coming to I'm coming to
Yeah.
Pittsburgh."
Yeah,
Um,
it was a huge leap to get to that point.
it's like they basically it was like
Yeah.
torment but red. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that tournament was fun because it was my first pro tour. I was working with friends of mine that I had never worked with before because this was my first foray into like a larger scope tournament before. Because like when I first started playing Magic,
Hmm.
I never thought I would travel. I would see these ads and I'd be like, well, that's ridiculous. Who would travel to
Yeah.
play Magic, right? Little did I know. But getting to work with you and Brian especially, and just like meeting between rounds, sharing war stories, right, talking about strategies and stuff was really fun. And then also playing against a lot of people whom I had read about in magazines and had known from the IRC. Also, like I ran into quite I had quite a row of opponents that tournament. I played against Ule and Donnie Gallitz,
Hmm.
Adrian Sullivan, future world's top 8 player, Rafael Amaro, Rudy Edwards. I mean, a lot of these names are probably not very familiar to modern listeners, modern viewers, but at the time they were like pretty big names.
Yeah.
You know, chess champion Ken Wallach.
Oh,
Yeah,
I knew him before the Pro Tour.
yeah. He was my first loss.
He's good.
He had a Spirit Mirror Helm of Possession deck, right? That he got me into a lock with. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I met Ken Wallach and Max Schlager in Chicago with Mark Aquino before there was a Pro Tour, and
Hmm.
we were at a flea market playing. It was a huge flea market in like Indiana somewhere, and Picula shows up, and that's when I met Chris. And
Hmm.
we played a bunch of Type One games that I'll probably not forget because I had him dead to rights, and then he got really lucky in multiple games. But he like in Chris's way, he's like, yeah, that's just how it's gonna go. Um, and that it was funny in retrospect.
Yeah.
But Ken was really good. We all became really fast friends back then. Like it was
Yeah.
a very easy time to meet
It's one of
people.
the yeah. I mean, like it just felt like we were all. I mean, Magic was new and Magic was exciting, right? But we were all like pretty smart kids who had problems with like the normal way of life,
Yeah, for sure.
right? So it was just easy to like glom together, right? I mean, some of us had more of a problem with that than others, but
There's like this like list of people who are still able to play Magic and be functional
yes.
versus play Magic, and I would say I was able to play Magic or be functional, but but
Oh,
not both. Like you have like Chris Picula, like he would seem fine, right?
yeah.
In fact, if you had any example other than Chris, let me know.
Uh,
Who else
off the
was
top of
like
off the
able to
top of
do
my
it?
head. Oh, Dave
Yeah,
Humphreys.
yeah. Humphrey seems really
He had
solid.
he had to, right? Didn't he get a PhD in
I think.
biology, right?
Yeah, I think he
Is
was
he?
able to do everything. He
Yeah,
still is, I think.
Dr. Humphreys.
Dr.
Oh,
Humphries.
yeah.
Chris Manning probably did it. Like he seems like he's been like on the up and up forever.
Yeah. Was he a high level player back then?
I think. I mean, back
Not to
then,
not to
no.
sh- not to cast shade on Chris Manning.
It's fine. It's good to give him reason to come on here in a year or two. But
Yeah.
um, we're not planting those. Actually, we can plant whatever seeds we want. But Chris, I think he was an alts like top 8 kind of guy.
Yeah.
After I was at Wizards and could no longer pay attention to any of this, I think he was doing really well. Like in
Okay.
the Steve Saden window where he's
Hmm.
after us, right?
Okay. Yeah. 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 My window was pretty short, but I felt like I Didn't come close. I didn't achieve all the goals that I wanted, but I was never really goal oriented, and I felt like I
Mhm.
made enough of a real impact that I was satisfied enough with like my career, as it were.
Yeah, you did well, right? You had a top 4 in a Grand Prix, and then
I had
that's how
two,
you qualify.
yeah, two top eights in Grand Prix, and I moneyed at 5 of my first 6 Pro Tours,
Mhm.
including 3 top 32s. Right
It's
back
pretty
when
hard
that,
to do. Yeah.
yeah. According to the Brain Burst Power Rankings, the short-lived, I was ranked number 8 in the world at one point.
Wow.
So
That that is some like miscellany. I want to go to like extreme trivia for like 90s and aughts only facts.
mm.
I would probably not do very well. When I was writing the Alternate Worlds book and I wrote the chapter on the first and second and maybe third time, I spent time with Landon Austin. Like he took out his like editor's pen and was like, "You have misremembered A, B, C, D, E, F, G," and I was like, "Thank you," and I will correct all of that.
uh,
And that's how you write a book in the modern era. You like don't rely on your memory at all, and just like make sure that people. I know John Becker's in here. I was like, "Hey man, can you read this and make sure any of this is true?" And he was like, "He's like, yes, it was all true." I'm like, "Thank
as
God."
the wait, isn't he the general counsel for Tongo Nation? Right.
You know, John is the most interesting human. Maybe I mean there are so many interesting people in this sphere. I mean, where does he rank on like intrigue? Like lawyer, someone everyone likes, but won't say anything negative about a team that openly does negative things, right?
Well,
Really interesting character. Yeah.
yeah, his long standing email address, right?
Is it what is his email? Is it Tongo Nation at
It
something?
used to be Tongo Nation at yahoo.com before I think he finally got a Gmail address.
Yeah, I didn't talk about this on Justin Gary's call, but we were trying to figure out a name between me, Mike Long, and Justin Gary, and Mike kept coming up with absurd, offensive names that I won't say here because I'm not looking to hurt anyone in retrospect. But he called us Tongo Nation without asking us, and we were like, that is not the name we wanted to go with. And so, but I think John, you know, it was a different dynamic depending on who you were in that pecking order. Um, I couldn't tell you. John Becker will have to record his own podcast at some point, or he can talk about it on
No,
here. But I've always liked John, and he is his own man. Also, I think he's here listening.
no. Hey, John,
Sorry,
if you're here,
sorry, John.
if you're here
Yeah,
and
John.
listening,
We
sorry
can
to
invite
dox
you.
you.
We can invite you onto the stage right now. I think we can also invite Flores, although I always imagine he's brushing his teeth the entire time that he's listening to this live call.
Oh,
So if like we bring him on, he could easily be like brushing his teeth right now. But any of these people, do you have this button on the bottom? See, we're all learning Substack at the same time. Do you have an add guest button at the bottom?
I do not. I have a video
Oh,
button
okay.
and a mic button. I think because
I,
you're the host, right?
I have all the power. It just seems so fun. I don't know who Tony Coles is, but
No,
man,
that's
I could certainly show throw a surprise into this conversation, and it
yeah,
would be a lot of fun.
that's the modern
Anyway,
world. One person has all the power.
yeah, yeah. I have like, when do I go visit Austin? It's like after PT Chicago, I end up visiting land for a month. I dropped out of school, and
Yeah.
one
So
thing
this
yeah, yeah.
it was after Chicago. It was after New York.
Mhm.
Um, this was after I had already qualified for LA, and the Pro Tour or the qualifying format was extended after Tempest. So I think so. This must have been after LA, also, right? Or no? No, because like we became
It's before
friends
LA.
before
Yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah. So
I,
somewhere, I guess in winter, winter-ish,
mhm.
97, early 98. So between October. Well, when was New York?
I don't know. Like,
So Chicago. Oh, New York was after. So I think you visited before
yeah,
John
yeah.
did, actually.
I went. I think we played in New York, right? So it was after. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So no. Because LA came first, right, in March, and then New York was after, and then
that's
John
right.
won New York, right? So you
Yeah,
came
yeah.
before. So you visited before John did. You
Yeah,
must have, right?
I think that's right. And I played in both those tournaments.
Yeah. So
And yeah, it was interesting. I had dropped out of college.
I remember I was trying to. I remember that I was floating the idea of you transferring to Texas, and then
Yeah.
you sent me your essay, and your essay was about how you were more than a number. I don't know if you remember that essay.
Oh no, I definitely. Please don't send me a file of all of this.
No, it
Yesterday,
was
Tronster sent me all of the emails that we corresponded with, and
Oh
like
yeah.
I know, like when I visited Austin, because my writing became much better, I could see it in the email depth and quality. All I did during the 9 months was either play Magic or like study and read the books I actually wanted to read, which
Yeah.
you were like an ideal like partner in that endeavor.
Yeah. The I just. Oh yeah. I don't have access to any of these archives because I don't have
Thank
access to my
God.
Hotmail account anymore. But I do
Hmm.
remember that essay because your theme was I'm more than a number, and then you talked about how large institutions identified students by their social security numbers,
Yeah, I do
and
remember
just
this. Yeah,
and just looked on them.
that wasn't going to
Yeah,
get me in, Lance.
well, it didn't, but Texas is kind of like predict, for whatever
Well,
reason.
they were interesting. They were like, if you do well in summer school, you can come. And I was like, all right. And I got straight A's in summer school. And then I was like, I don't want to go there now.
Yeah,
And I ended up returning to the school I started at and finishing and doing really well. So it
yeah,
was like, there's a point where I don't know when people catch themselves like in their educational path, but for the longest time, you just do what you're told or do what's given to you or asked of you. And often you don't necessarily have your own window to like engage with the subjects you're interested in. And so if you're over programmed, you end up never gaining agency enough to like control your own education, which is the point of education by and large. Um, and so it was kind of an odd window of time. I don't know if your experience was the same, but I mean, you're the most like you study, you learn all the time. You are quite an
yeah.
active learner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's just that's my fetish. Um, I guess.
Is that a fetish or a quality? Are those the same?
Yeah, one man's trash, right? Um,
Yes.
I mean, they're like, isn't it like popular not to read anymore? Right? They say that kids can't read these days. Really, they don't have the attention span to read or even
I
watch a movie. Right? There's literally an article I read in the Atlantic where it talked
hmm
about how film students don't have the attention span to watch a film all the way through now,
hmm
which is like,
That's crazy.
yeah, what are you doing? Right? Um,
Yeah. How do you fix that? No
uh,
hard. Just I'm going to ask you only the hardest questions for the
well,
next window of
Aus-
time. Yeah.
Australia, right? They had a pretty good,
Yeah.
right? They banned social media for people under 16.
Sure. Sounds good to
And
me.
it was funny. I was talking to John Finkel and his wife about John's nephews, and like, not to throw shade at my nephew, right? But I think his brain's being rotted, right? Just because he's 6.
Yeah. This is a
He's
serious weight, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, I saw them. I saw my sister and her family over Christmas, and my nephew was just all about like Fortnite and what Mr. Beast was into, and then buying Mr. We went to Target and he really wanted like Mr. Beast branded chocolate, right? And he was like, "Oh, it's the best chocolate in the world." And I was like, "What's going on
Mhm.
here? How's this possible, right?" And like obviously the marketing, these guys are really good at marketing because
Mm.
like
Yeah.
during Christmas, Fortnite had an event called Brain Rot, right? It was just like so.
Yeah. Steal a brain
Yes,
rot is the game on there. Yeah.
yeah. So just like the fact that we were using the phrase like brain rot and like, oh, your brain's being rotted, but they, reclaimed it, right? And made it like a positive thing, right? Like it became a badge to wear. But I asked John, I was like, well, what do you do, about your nephews, right? To keep their brains from being rotted. He's like, no, their brains are rotted through and through. Um, they're watching YouTube videos while playing a game on the iPad at the same
Yeah.
time, and it's over for them. And I was like, oh, all right. Because I met them at the wedding, which I officiated, of course. Um, and
If
there
you could
were.
go back in time and impart one message while you were officiating, what would
Oh,
you add?
I think it was perfect as is. Right?
Oh, great.
Oh,
That's good.
I would tell Jen, John's sister, not to rush Brooke after the ceremony for the group photo. Right. So
Oh,
just
yeah.
let her
That's
have.
good.
Yeah, tell her to let Brooke have like a few moments to herself.
Okay. Yeah, that's just great advice. Well, I was thinking for,
But
okay. No, this is, yeah,
how are
continue.
your own daughters? How did you prevent their? Because they like to read, they like to engage the world, but how do you prevent their brains from being just rotted through and
You
through?
know, we're in an interesting situation where we're kids 3 and 4 in the family that's nearby. So Morgan's brother has and wife have 2 kids, and they had their own rules. They're very like studious, and did a ton of research. And their kids didn't get a phone until they were 13, and so we're actually like quite safeguarded. We're like, these are smart children, and this is how
Mm-mm-mm.
they grew up. So we can actually just enforce their rules and like, um,
Just
what's
precedent.
yeah, what's it called when you're drafting in racing? We could basically just draft on their pop.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So because we're like fortunate in the sort, but we don't really. My wife wouldn't allow iPad usage heavily, no matter what. I find it really interesting because I grew up on TV and using a computer, and there's a lot of good that can come from using a computer a lot. Um, but I think we'll just keep them at bay for as long as we can. And I am, my kids' libraries echo yours. I think whenever they
Oh
have an interest in a book, I'm like, let's go.
yeah.
I don't, and so the incentives systems are pretty different, right? In the old world, I think you'd be like, oh, you want that? Do some work and you'll get it. And in this world, I'm like, oh, you have any interest in anything that's good for you? Like here it is, because it's going to be so competitive later, right?
Yeah.
And we're pretty lucky. The school they go to is really wonderful. Like, so I feel very good about how they're turning out so far. And
Yeah. They
but
seem great.
yeah, I like them quite a bit. They don't have rotted brains. If you were like, hey, let's make a dollhouse out of like foam and clay for like 12 hours in a row and make a little city, they could do it no problem. So
Yeah.
um, that's not like how I judge all people. Like if you can't do that, it's okay if you can't. But
You get kicked off the island. No,
yeah, clay
no,
and
my
foam
niece
island.
is just turned 12 and she seems basically like the opposite of my nephew who's like 5 years younger than she is.
Hmm.
But I wondered whether part of it was that he was born like right before the pandemic, right?
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So it became like difficult for him to socialize in California, um, for whatever reason. And then now that they moved to Texas a few years ago to Dallas,
Hmm.
and he has friends in school, but I wondered whether his friends are just like part of this like what I view to be a pernicious influence, right?
Hmm.
Promoting Mr. Beast and Fortnite and all these memes and stuff. Although
Does
I did impress him with my knowledge of Gen Alpha memes, right?
Does Mr. Beast not sell something? I just want to see Mr. Beast like create a subscription service so that you can get your diapers, your kid underwear at like graduated age, and just like
And
brand from start to finish. Like, why not be as
he had
repulsive as you can?
he had ghost kitchens and he has like chocolate bars that are being sold at
Yeah.
Targets, right? So you know,
I mean,
if you really wanted it, right, and were willing to pay me a non-trivial fee, I could probably set this up for you, right? Just to
uh,
enough for me to like deal with the moral pangs that I would feel from
wouldn't you just give it
participating
to
in
your
this.
enemy? Wouldn't you
Huh?
just give it to your enemies? Like, why would you give it to the people you care about? You're like, hey, people I don't care about.
Oh no,
Here is a
because you were the
lifetime supply. Yeah.
well. This is just the system that we lived in, right? I'm just trying to connect, right, a
Yeah.
need, right?
If you live in Florida for the rest of your life, everything that you buy will have Mr. Beast branding on it. Your underwear, your brassieres, whatever it is that you're buying. Um, that sounds fair to me. Like if
Yeah,
you
that
like what's
sounds
going on right now,
desirable. Yeah,
it would make it's hard to make Florida like less desirable to me as a place to go, but that would do it.
yeah. It
Sorry,
pushes
Florida.
it from a negative number to a lower negative number.
Yeah, I believe there are nice areas of Florida because there are smart people I know who live in Florida and enjoy it. But
I
whenever
think
I go,
isn't that the exception that proves the rule though?
I'm just trying to save face when I'm really just throwing shit.
Yeah.
And you're right. You're right to call me on that. I should not soften my message.
Yeah.
Yeah, you end up there's this memory I have. Like you, me, Dan Burdick, Brian Kibler, and Patrick Chapin are at an Origins, and we're all really exhausted and really happy, but I
I
don't
stayed
know
up
why.
I stayed up
Yeah.
68 straight hours there in
Yeah. I remember
Origins.
us having like the best time of our lives pretty much, and I can't remember anything other than the happiness. Do you remember
Uh,
any of it?
I remember a lot of it actually.
Oh, thank God. Thank God.
There was well, me and Patrick were kind of like both flirting with the random girl at the Euro place in the food court, right?
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
I got her I got her AIM screen name and started like chatting with her. Right.
That's
And
something.
then over Christmas, she was really excited to get a cell phone and blue contact lenses. And I was like, guess we're not really on the same wavelength about anything.
Yeah.
There was also
That's
this was like when Vampire the Masquerade was like really like ascending, right?
mhm.
And you had live action Vampire the Masquerade role play like LARPing at Origins.
Oh yeah.
And it was pretty funny because we the magicians were making fun of them, but I'm sure they were making fun of us also. Right?
I
Just
like how
like,
we can all get along now, right? When you go to one
yeah,
of these conventions, we're all friends now. We are all rowing on the same page.
yeah, but just two cadres of nerds, right? Both like fighting with each other to not be the bottom of the totem pole, so to speak.
And there was the RPG crowd too, and they were also not happy about the Magic players. Like they were
Well,
like,
Magic,
"You're a
right? Had
Magic
just
player, not a gamer," right? That was the
yeah,
stigma.
but I remember the vampire players they would do this, right? It was like obfuscate, right? And that would mean like they were invisible, so you couldn't see them. Um, that was also the origins where the infamous like Bloom in the lap incident happened,
Oh, okay.
right? With
I didn't know I
you
was
know,
there. Like when I
yeah,
talked to Albert Burkhead, he's like, "Were you there?" And I'm like, The thing is, I don't think any of us slept. We were actually. I stayed up 36 hours straight and played in I think the Alpha Grandmaster during that event.
oh yeah, I played in one or two of the opens trying to grind in, right? And I didn't get there.
Yeah.
Um, I remember I built in retrospect, medium like 5-color Tradewind Geddon deck, right?
hmm
Um, it probably like seemed pretty good at the time, but it didn't really take advantage of like a lot of the new cards that had just come out, specifically Survival of the Fittest or Recurring Nightmare. But
It also requires you to be good at Magic, which
well, I
like yeah, like not that you're not, but like that sounds challenging, right? Like
well,
that's a high skill.
I lent the deck to Ted Kaplan, right? Who now is
Yeah,
a
I quite love Ted Kaplan and couldn't figure out what story to use in the
well,
books for him.
he's just like an upstanding member of society now. You know, has a wife,
Yeah,
kids. He's like a lawyer, but back then he was kind of one of the the rougher kids, right?
because he was from like New Jersey or Philadelphia or something,
Philly,
and
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
people like I talked to Brian David Marshall and I was like, why was I scared of you until 48? Like, which is like when we talked on the interview. And it's because he's from New York. Like Ted was just from like a place where you're naturally like comfortable with your abrasiveness,
Yeah, I mean,
right?
like Covener, who was like the I guess the main admin of MTG Pro,
And
would always
Eric,
make
right?
fun of
Yeah,
Kaplan. Like, hey, get out your knee pads. I don't know if you remember that. That was supposed
yeah.
to be like his motto or his
He's
catchphrase.
probably like from The Sopranos, right? He has that kind of vibe.
But regardless, I went
He's a
Kaplan the
professional
deck,
now. Yeah,
and he was also kind of a shady player, right? And
he
then,
was in that like young and too smart crowd, right? Yeah.
well, so after he lost, I think his semifinal match because these were flights of 32, right? The person
hmm
who wins like all 5 rounds, right, makes it. And he was 3-0, right? So he's playing the semifinal match, and
Yeah,
he
he was good.
loses. Then he calls over the judge, right? And he's like, "Hey, judge, my opponent somehow like shuffled my deck, and now all my lands are facing one direction, and all the spells are facing another direction.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So he should be DQ'd, and the judge was just like,
This is a little suspicious.
Yeah.
Just a little.
So at least like the judge was able to see through.
Who couldn't see through that?
It was just like the most insane like gambit, right? But I guess you have to give him credit for even attempting that gambit, right?
I do not give him credit for attempting that.
Like never in my I would never dream. Let's say like I, even thought to like cheat like this in the first place, right? I would never dream of trying to like accuse my opponent of doing that because it's just so outrageous, right? Who would believe that? But
yeah, I mean that does describe our current political climate and the people in charge. So someone would do it. Ideally, those people don't succeed, but yeah.
Yeah, well, just try again. Like if it doesn't work, you just immediately try. You tell another lie, right? And eventually one will stick.
Yeah, it's well, it's hard to go out on after that.
But yeah, the Origins was really great. Plus, like a lot of like our friends did really well. Like Lauer was playing against John in the last round of Swiss for top 8. Lauer was on mono red with orgs on the sideboard, and then Donnie, Pete, and Mike, whom I just all rooted for. They got the collateral benefit because I was friends with you, right? They all Pete. I don't think Donnie made top 8, right? But they all came. But Pete and Mike both did.
Right? Huh? Like Matt was in like the friend group too, pretty much. Lindy.
Lindy. Yeah, but he was. This was really his coming out party.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. Because he was, I think, only 16 at the time.
Yeah, I was rooting for Matt Holy like at that tournament.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, were you rooting for Matt, or were you rooting for Mike Long? Oh, and I think he was playing. He played against Price in the quarterfinals, and he was on mono white, right, versus mono red, and it was like a thrashing because he had Imperial Armor and Spirit Link and pro red creatures, right? What are you gonna do? So
yeah. Yeah, that was a great time. You almost like, I don't know that I've ever seen a movie that really captures that spirit of like just these different subcultures. It's not quite like a high school movie where you have the different cliques or whatnot, but it's like all these people who are all just people like trying to figure out how to coexist. And it's during a window where counterculture is popular. Looking down on other people's cultures was like common then, right?
Yeah, well,
which
it was
is not true now. Yeah,
it's definitely less true now. But back then we're all trying to carve our own space. And I just remember, I think that's where I met Flores and Team Discovery Channel. I think that's what they were called back then.
They're a really sweet team.
And then I met, I think this is where I met Burdick and Eric Atwood and those guys, the Kansas City guys also. I feel like I must have met them in Chicago because it wasn't a very far trip. I don't know. My regarding it specifically when I met those specific people, but I think I did meet Flores and Altran and those guys at Origins. And Sean Baker and his brother.
Sean.
Kevin. Yeah. Oh, and Yap. You remember him? Kevin Yap?
I do remember these people. It's interesting to me how many, like, you go to like an event like this, and then over the next couple of years, like you in particular, you go to Kansas City. I end up visiting like Mike Flores and the TDC guys at Penn many times. And it was like Magic ended up being this great way to like travel and see people and bond, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I talked about, like, when I talk about these old days, I often bring up like Pro Tours as basically being like a reunion, right?
Yeah.
Basically like a school reunion or a family, well, maybe not family reunion, but basically like a school reunion.
Better than, no offense, family. No
yeah.
Offense. Although my family would be there, so it's totally fine.
Well, I don't have much family, right? Because we were refugees, so we basically every weekend was like a reunion. But I remember when I interviewed Ben Rubin, for our when we were working on our documentary. I came the game that never
Mhm.
got completed, but he talked about how Magic had as profound an influence on his life as any close friend or family member. And looking back, I think it's absolutely true. My friends that I met from Magic were instrumental in getting
Oh,
me
yeah.
to move to the East Coast, right? And they
Mhm.
were instrumental in getting me to like shift gears and end up in the career that I'm in, right? And uh, almost 30 years after I met you, I'm on a call with you right now,
Yeah, it's pretty
right?
wild.
Right. Even like
Yeah.
after we've all stopped playing Magic, basically. I mean, I play a little bit here and there, but John basically plays none anymore. Dan barely plays any, but and well, Mike plays like several times a week, but
Yeah, Flores is dedicated.
he's deranged, right? Something's broken with his mind. But
I
most
can,
of us, oh,
Mike, if you're out there, I can add you on the call at any time.
but
But yeah.
yeah, we've remained friends. We became friends because of Magic, but that's not why we
Mhm.
stayed friends.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that it is interesting how easy it comes. I think Justin and Gary kind of said it like when we are together, we're all still like teenagers or 20 something. But again, it comes back really easily. I also like one thing I remember that Ben Rubin said. I hadn't thought about bringing him on here at some point, but it does make sense.
He's very thoughtful, super thoughtful.
Yeah, he's lived a really interesting life too, and went in different directions from everyone's gone in different directions, but he's pretty unique. But he said early, like when he was like a 16-year-old, there are no geniuses playing Magic, and I kind of feel like it doesn't matter. But I do see like the collective like group as being like an incredibly fertile one in retrospect, right? Where you're like, there wasn't one genius, but the group working together maybe is one, right?
What is his definition of
I don't
genius?
know. I mean, he was
Right?
16.
Like, yeah, I just mean that like
Yeah.
I would argue that Bobby Fischer was probably a genius, right? Who said that?
Yeah, I would say that's true. I mean,
But
given,
he basically knew
yeah,
nothing other than chess, right? But he knew
yeah,
chess at such a fundamental level, right? That within that world he must have been a genius, right?
yeah. I mean, is there anyone like Kai and John? Obviously, like were incredibly good,
Well,
but like John is cultured somewhat, right? He's fairly cultured and knows a lot of things. He's studied a lot of things. He's not just like a monoculture of magic. Is there
yeah, it's
anyone who's just a monoculture of magic?
uh
Could you even be?
yeah, well, I guess it's different because chess you could dedicate your life to studying this one thing because there are
Yeah,
all these permutations, right? And
it's simpler.
combinations, and the game never changes. And there's also this entire like history where you study old games. It's almost like being a Talmudic scholar, you know,
Yeah. Hmm.
right? Where you're just like, there's no commentary in these games. You're just like reading through the moves of the games, and you're trying to derive and understand why they made these moves, right? But if you don't have the ability to see X moves in advance, these things may seem really oblique to you. Um, Part of what made Magic so addictive, kind of hesitate to use that word, is the fact that they kept releasing new cards, right? So the game kept changing. And of course,
Hmm.
we could say whatever we want about how Magic's being treated these days, right? Where they are carrying that to almost like a real extreme.
Yeah.
But even the people who loved Magic the most and were its most prolific writers, there was always a like a point of pride to having other interests,
Yeah.
right? And being cultured beyond Magic. I remember so it's a little bit after my time, but when Jeff Cunningham became like a big writer on Magic, he would include like song lyrics or whatever,
Yeah.
right? And then that was like his way of signaling that, hey, I'm not monoculturally Magic, right?
I mean, you won't get the references on the cards. There's by design, it's almost like The Simpsons in a way, where it's been running for a long time, and there are all these different references to these different creative worlds, these like messages that harken to different universes. And so, if you're not like studying the world around you, such that you can like have a richer experience with the game, you're missing out, right? So it rewards you, whereas like chess is like far more limited creatively.
It's
It
very
doesn't
abstract.
connect. Yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
connect to the world.
Although, I think that was a journey that Magic took over time, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember, Rosewater wrote an article. It must be 20 years ago at this point, but I thought it was very, very like astute. It
Hmm.
was an article about how Magic was different from other games because it was very personalized, and for a segment of the population, they formed strong emotional attachments to their decks, right, or to various themes in there. And we all know people like this, or I do at least. Maybe you know them in your ivory tower, like the Merfolk guy,
Never
the
heard of
Goblin
this.
guy, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And of course, this has been accentuated with the creation or the promotion of Commander, right? Whereas before it was just like you had a number of things you could glom onto. Oh, I'm a black blue mage or whatever. But now you have very specific emotional attachments to a specific commander, and you're trying to like tune your own deck or whatever.
Hmm.
And part of that was, I don't think it was by design, but it was a big consequence of the way Magic was designed, right? Where you're buying your own cards, you bring your own pieces, right? And the fact that
Hmm.
you're building these things, you are investing a lot of intellectual and eventually emotional capital into these decks, and yeah, so it's not like chess where it's like an intellectual problem to solve. It feels like,
Hmm.
because it's like it's it's weird. Well, I will say this, right? Um, Magic is more complex than chess because there are more pieces, but chess has been play tested better, right?
Sure, it is. You never get
It's
mana screwed when you're playing to.
Yeah, it's a more balanced game, right? You never have sets where you're just like, well, I was playing against Magnus Carlsen, right, and he fucking got his Oko, right?
It's like we used to at Wizards we used to compare like Warcraft versus Starcraft, where one game had probabilistic math and the other was very chess-like with fixed math, and you have your preference. It's not some people like the fixed rules and some people like
Yeah,
the chaos. I probably prefer the chaos because it's there's less to expect. That's actually much more fun.
yeah, but the problem is that things just aren't always balanced.
Hmm.
Sometimes like cards will come through and the set will be like ruined or whatever because cards too
Yeah.
strong or certain interactions were unseen or certain interactions were too strong or so on and so forth. But
What's
it's
your
hard
favorite
to
unfair card? What's your favorite unfair card?
unfair. It's weird because
Yeah, I have incredible fondness for most of them, except for the ones that were made on my watch.
yeah, my favorite card of all time is probably Fact or Fiction.
Pretty good.
And then
It's a really neat card.
yeah, I mean, like, my claim to fame is that I've never made a bad Fact or Fiction split. Uh,
Is that going on like your tombstone? Never made a bad fact or fiction
it's
split. There's a
actually
more.
I think
Yeah.
actually you played an indirect but instrumental uh role in that, because when you stayed with me the first time, you taught me how to Solomon draft.
Yeah, I love that format.
Yeah, and it's funny because when we talk about like Bobby Fischer being great at chess, because he invented was it chess 960 or whatever it's called, Fischer chess.
Yeah.
Like Solomon draft, I think is a really good way to separate people who have fundamental magic skills versus people who are just you know format robots, right? Where you go and you have to, because it makes you think about magic in a fundamental and different way from the way other people the way you normally think about magic. You're still playing by the same rules, right?
Yeah.
But you're having to do analysis on this weird axis, right? And you have to do it on the fly.
Yeah, I think for people who are listening, who don't know what Solomon draft is, you would take 5 cards. There would be 2 people drafting.
We
One
did it with
player.
10.
Oh yeah, and you would
When you
put 2 piles out. Whether it could be 10 cards, 5 cards, and you try to design a distribution that will end up being favorable to you in the end, and you try to set up different incentives so the other player um,
Yeah,
sometimes
basically,
take something you don't care about. You know what I mean? It's definitely a constant gambit before you get to even building your deck.
yeah, you're basically just making fact or fiction piles, right? You both
Yeah.
agree on the set number. One person does a split, and the other person makes the choice, and then you alternate the roles until the entire card pool is exhausted. And in fact, I felt so confident in my ability at Solomon Draft that at the inaugural, what did they call it? The Event Horizons Invitational, right?
Hmm.
Which was modeled after the Duelist Invitational, but it was limited to players in the Gulf Coast area, Texas and Louisiana. I was the first seed going into the finals against James Stroud. I was 12-3
Hmm.
in Swiss, and he was 10-5. And because I was the first seed, I got to choose the format, and I chose Chaos Pack Solomon Draft. And I remember it was like
Sounds
one
awesome.
pack of Tempest, one pack of Stronghold, one pack of Urza's Legacy, and so on. I think one pack of Urga Saga, and a couple of others. I don't remember exactly the other two. And these were when packs had 15 cards each. So this was 90 cards in general, right? In
Hmm.
total. And I set it up such that we made splits of 10 cards, 9 splits, right? And he had never played this before, so he wanted me to do the first split, right? And afterward, he told me that he had no idea what was going on because every time he made a split, I took the pile that he didn't expect me to take.
Hmm.
And then, like, I felt pretty good about my deck already, but when he told me that, right, I was just like, well, there's no way I could lose this, right? And I ended up winning 3-0, and I felt like I had won the splits 4-0-5. Like, I felt every time I split, right, I was indifferent to which pile I took. And every time he made a split, I took the pile that was better. So, and
I
then,
wonder if you were training a Magic player to become better than they are today. If you were just like play 5 Solomon drafts against someone pretty good, like they might just be better for the rest of their life playing the game, right?
yeah, I did at the last Pro Tour I played in, which was actually in Sydney in 2016. I was trying to play Solomon Draft with like other Pro Tour competitors randomly
Hmm.
with like draft leavings, and the only one who engaged was Jeff Fung.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, who's it was awesome to see him at that Pro Tour also because like he played when we played, right, like 20 years ago, 25 years ago now actually,
Hmm. Yes.
and
You can add years for me, but yeah,
yeah.
it's like 30, coming up on
Oh yeah,
30
I've
for
been, I've
me.
been playing since '94, but I just mean like when we
Oh
met
no.
Jeff and when Jeff was,
Oh yeah.
yeah. But he, I really put him through the ringer, and I don't want to brag too much, but it was a bloodbath. It was basically like the dream team in 92, right? And he was
Hmm.
like the Angola team. I'm the dream team,
Oh
right?
no.
And he was
Poor
Angola.
Jeff Fung. Jeff
Yeah,
Fung is a beloved
I
person,
love Jeff. Yeah,
player. We all love him, and Jeff has had top eights and a lot of success. And he is the kind of person you can tell a joke about, and he'll be fine with it, right, Jeff?
yeah.
I hope he's fine with it.
Oh, he was
Um,
also one of my fondest memories of Magic involves Jeff Fung actually.
mhm.
I might as well tell it. It was at a Pro Tour. This was Pro Tour. It was Mercadian Masks Limited. So this was Pro Tour LA,
Mhm.
2000 ish, right? I think Trevor Blackwell won this one. Maybe it doesn't matter. But we did a money draft, right? And it was me, Jeff Fung, and Adrian Sayers versus David Price, Terry Sang, and Peter Radonich, right?
Mhm.
And in fact, I'm the only player in this draft that doesn't have a Pro Tour top 8. And I thought my deck was excellent. My deck was extremely good, but Adrian and Jeff's decks were pretty abysmal. And we were playing for $50, and we laid out our cards, right? And I was like, "Oh my god, your guys' decks! I don't think you guys can win a game between you." And I wanted to offer a buyout. Just like, look, let's just save all our time, save ourselves some time. We'll give you guys $20, and then we'll go our separate ways. And Pete, Terry, and David demanded $30, right? And then, but Jeff and Adrian were just like hell bent on playing it through. They're like, we're gonna go play. Adrian's deck was like he was playing the blue-green control deck with like 2 Howling Wolves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to give you an idea of like how good his deck was, and then Terry, David, and Pete, they thought their decks were like outstanding, right? So, but we win 5-0. We win 5-0, and I remember like David and Terry specifically just looking at like the wreckage of the draft, right? And for some reason, like as soon as like Adrian wins his match, because me and Jeff go 2-0 and Adrian wins like a marathon match against Radnich, Jeff takes off his shoe and tells Adrian to go long, and then he throws like a bomb to him, right? But I remember as soon as like Adrian wins, I also just jump on the table and I like I just beat Price. I was like, how do you like that? So
did you ask for double or nothing?
My deck was super good. I had a black-red deck with Power Matrix, Mercadian Atlas, and Haunted Crossroads, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, to give you an idea of the power level back then, one of my powerful combos was I had Mercadian Atlas, which is 5 cast cost passive artifact. If you don't play a land, you draw a card, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Haunted Crossroads is an enchantment that for 1 black mana, you put a creature from your graveyard back on top of your library. So what I did was I had a lot of mana. I didn't play a land, right? So I would draw 2 cards each turn, one of which was a Shock Troops every time, which was a 4 mana 2/2 that you could sack to do 2 damage to any target. So, which back then was basically as good as it gets.
It was very good.
Yeah. And I basically put him into Hurt Locker, but it was really sweet, and it was good to have that memory with Jeff and Adrian. So
you can't catch a shoe at every tournament. That
was a weird thing to do. I don't know why they did that, right? But
yeah. Did he catch it?
I think so, but I just don't know why he knew immediately when he just takes off his shoe. He says, "Go long."
Yeah, what happens if he doesn't catch it and it hits somebody? These are weird scenarios that can play out. Banned for life.
No, these things are. Well, there was the one time we all went to a Hooters, right? It was like
I was not there. I'm sure.
No, this may have been the same tournament, but it was like me, Dan Clegg, Ken Ho.
Mm-hmm.
Went to a Hooters, and Noah Boken was there with the Dutch crew, and there was one of those. What do they call those like basketball games?
A jump shot, like fast shot or something like that.
Yeah, the one the one where you just go. But there's a specific name for that. I forgot what they're called. But anyway, they kept like, I think Dan Clegg was playing with them, and they kept moving farther and farther back, right, till they were maybe like 20 feet away from. They're taking shots from like 20 feet away, which is like pretty far inside of Hooters, right? And I was like, well, this doesn't seem like a great idea. And then, sure enough, one of them took a shot, and it crumbed off the rim, and like knocked over this pitcher, and like the beer spills on this woman, right? And then her boyfriend or her date just goes up and just becomes like instantly confrontational. He's like, "All right, who's the asshole? Who's the asshole here?" And I was like, "Oh my god, we're gonna get killed." But I think Noah just went and like smooth talked the guy, put his arm around him, was like, "Hey man, I'm from the Netherlands. I don't know any better." Or whatever. He bought him a pitcher of beer, and they became friends, right? So
that's pretty funny.
Yeah, this potentially explosive
I hope he became his poker coach. Like Noah ended up becoming like a tournament-winning poker player. Is that what? I don't know entirely. I just vaguely have it. Yeah.
Yeah, he won. I think like the European tournament, or he won some big online tournament, or both. But do you remember the tournament? Was it 2004 when Williams got second to Raymer? Right, I think it was 2004.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Do you remember the guy who bubbled out, Marcel Lusk? Right?
Yeah, of course.
He was, I think, like Noah's mentor, right? and I think that they had actually had a show in the Netherlands together called Poker Kings, like a reality show. So,
Hmm.
but Noah became very successful in the poker and gambling sphere.
I was at the World Series. I saw Dave before he played in the World
Oh,
Series that year. I went home, but I had been there with I think Randy Bueller and Thomas Pinnell. We came down from Wizards and played in the qualifier tournaments ahead of time, and then Dave has always seemed different to me since. But
yeah,
uh, pretty fun to see happen for sure. And
yeah. The in 2008, we went and we were filming the WhatsApp, the World
mhm,
Series for our documentary because we knew a lot of like Magic players would be there. And we wanted to get some B-roll and stuff also.
mhm,
And Noah was there, and at one point he was actually the chip leader.
yeah,
And but it just like he spent the next day. He said he was just card dead. He like just got chipped down, and then he got busted, and then he busted right.
mhm.
And then he said he goes, "Oh, the worst day of the year, the day you bust from the main event. Nothing sounds good." And I told him I was like, "Well, doesn't a milkshake? We can go to In and Out and get you a milkshake. Doesn't that sound pretty good?" And he was like, "That does sound pretty good." And I was like, "And then we can go back. We can go back to the hotel and we can do a draft, right? That sounds pretty good, right?" He was like, "That does sound pretty good." I go, "Let's go to In and Out. I'll get you a milkshake and then we can do a draft."
We are
And that's
not
what we
sponsored by In and Out or Magic the
no.
Gathering. It's just
But he also by the way, he's like a millionaire poker player, and I was just like a broke, filmmaker at the time. But I like footed his bill In and Out.
Mhm.
Um, and then because he was like so tilted, he 0-3'd on my team in draft. So, but he felt better, So
Yeah, those sound like awesome. We could do those right after this recording, actually, and I think life would be pretty good. How did you get into making the movie? I actually don't know. Like, where'd that come
uh,
from, and how'd that journey go?
it was actually Patrick Chapin wanted to do a Magic reality show at Grand Prix. I think it was no. I think it was Nationals.
Hmm.
It was Nationals, which was at Indianapolis in 2008. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go. I hadn't played Magic really since like 2001. I didn't, the occasional store draft or whatever, but functionally, I didn't know any of the cards or anything. Planeswalkers got invented while I was gone, also,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But this is where I met Mark Herberholtz. Dan Burdick came along too, and we were filming like this. We rented a house. We were filming there, and we were at the tournament site, and I just felt that the reality show wasn't. It really wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
I thought that the setup, there weren't enough cameras. It just felt like I was like, so you're not capturing nearly enough footage, right?
Hmm.
Because even back then, before I understood like the production of a reality show, I like had an intuitive understanding of what it would take.
Hmm.
And we didn't have and Patrick was also in the weird position of being both a participant and producer, which like won't work.
Yeah.
And then we were there at Nationals, and I was just like, look, this isn't going really well. And I grabbed Eric, who was like one of my best friends and also a cameraman at the time. And I think Travis Matson was also there, who's also a cameraman, who's also a good friend from Kansas City. I was like,
Hmm.
let's just start doing some guerrilla interviews with some people and see how this goes. And then I thought that the interviews went pretty well,
Hmm.
and that led to us deciding to actually do a documentary for real. Um, and so we did that for the next 2.5 years through Worlds 2010 in Rome. And then we ran out of money. I eventually got a job at SIG,
Hmm.
and then after that, Eric had some marital issues,
Yeah.
right? And so he got divorced from his wife, but that led to just like a lot of the stuff being put on the back burner. And also I had to focus on learning things for work that I had never like participated in before. Like I literally never used Excel before I started working at
I've been
SIG.
there.
Yeah.
I remember Henry Stern teaching me how to use Excel in like 2000,
Yeah.
and again at Zynga in a real way in like 2009 or 10.
And these were like not just simple Excel worksheets. These were worksheets that were like
Yeah.
plugged into like Bloomberg and using like live data to recalculate like volatilities and stuff. And as a person who
Yeah.
just had never used Excel before, like my knowledge of Excel was so I was so like bereft of Excel knowledge that I didn't know that the columns and the rows highlighted to indicate what cell you were in, right? So like,
Yeah.
my risk manager would be like, "Hey, what does our delta and XLE look like after that trade?" And I would go like to the page and I would just like find the row,
Oh my God.
find the column, find the row, and I would just like right. And then one of the other like new hires, as part of my cohort, was like, "Oh, I thought you were just doing calculations in your head when you were doing that."
That's pretty funny. Like we read books back in like in the 90s, right?
Yeah, I was
Like you
I
didn't
was
have Excel in the 90s.
I was older than the rest of my hiring cohort, right? I was like 10 years older than they were, and I didn't study anything like that in school anyway. So
Yeah.
I did a little. I studied a little bit of like AutoCAD and that kind of stuff before I dropped out of engineering. So,
Are you good at
but
Excel now?
I am very functional at Excel. I've built some like pretty good worksheets, and I think I can learn things that you need to do in Excel. There is like a limit of what I'm not like great at doing arrays,
Yeah.
right? And I don't really fully understand like when you need to use them. So none of the sheets that I've built like need arrays. I think you can usually go uh do things like the complicated way, around arrays. But I would say like I use Excel basically every day. It was like weirdly, it was actually Igor Freeman who jump started my Excel knowledge and exploration because we were doing I was with him at a pari-mutuel draft at SIG. Like every year they would do a pari-mutuel draft around March Madness, right?
Mhm.
And you would just all six back then it was 64 teams. All 64 teams would get drafted, right? And then people would bid on them, right? And in theory, the team should go down to uh their fair value, assuming everyone's like a rational actor, right? Because you're just paying for what you think will represent their percentage of winning the entire tournament, right? Or their expected
Mhm.
value. But anyway, obviously you don't know what the total prize pool is going to be. So these things change over time. But I just saw him using Excel as a calculator, right? Like he was just doing something. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's what you should use Excel for. Which is kind of like, sounds like the most like obvious thing in the world, right?
Yeah. Igor, if you don't know, was a Magic Pro and part of, I think, the Brian Hacker John Yu group. Kurt Berger,
Truck
maybe.
Boy,
Truck Boy, right? Yeah.
yeah. Team Dickhead,
Southern California. Yeah, I
yeah.
did not remember their name, but
The,
I'm supposed to
they
talk to Mr. Hacker soon, so it's good to
they
remember.
famously taught the world to draft,
They
right? It
were
was
really good at Magic. Yeah,
yeah, that
they
was
had a
their
mana curve for draft first.
yeah, that was well back then. Right now, everything is like but it was like a huge. It was a huge like leap as far as like understanding of Magic, and Brian Hacker wrote that like really like famous Magic essay.
Hmm.
Was it Magic in the Pool Halls or something like that? Money Draft in the Pool Halls. But it was
I don't.
basically
No, go ahead.
it was basically just comparing Money Draft to like the CD pool halls where people would play for cash, right? And it was just
Mhm.
trying to invite like other Magic players to go in, right, and play Magic for money. That is a part of like Magic culture that I do kind of miss, right?
Yeah, Opalka was like went to an event recently. Jason Opalka was a friend of ours from the '90s and aughts, and he was like someone who didn't sleep. He would play anti matches all night, and that was he would sleep under the table, right? Like he would loved it so much, and when he goes to the tournaments now, they close it at like 6 or 8 or something, and like he's
Yeah.
like they don't even stay up overnight to play money draft, and so
No,
it
well,
was really like the reason that these hardcore players would go.
not only do they not money draft, they also just don't hang out, right? Like Magic players just don't hang out anymore, and that was like really like the raison d'etre, right? To go to these pro tours. Like I mentioned earlier in our call, these things were reunions. You get
Yeah,
to
yeah.
see these friends that you never get to see. Maybe the world is different now with like streaming or whatever. And I guess if I saw you playing Magic online every day, I would get pretty sick of you, right? I wouldn't need to be around you.
I'd get sick of me too, but yeah. Uh,
But yeah, it is. You know, and I never want to sound like a person who's just nostalgic for the old days, right?
mhm.
But it's just what I loved about that scene is different from the way the scene is presented now. Very different.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like poker has gone down in prominence, and the overlap of you can tell by like Universes Beyond, the overlap of Magic with an audience. It's closer to people who love fandom and people who love
Oh,
collecting, right?
yeah. I mean, like when I guess when we would go to Grand Prix and stuff, we would occasionally see someone dressed like a wizard. They would literally be wearing like a pointy hat and like they'd be carrying a staff and a robe, and we were like, look at that guy, right?
Hmm.
But now cosplay is just like a huge and not only accepted but promoted part of the community.
It's
You
pretty
know,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
you have people that cosplay at tournaments, but they're the guests that other people are coming to see, and they're receiving fees for this. So, whereas when we were playing, I guess like John still like feels. It's funny because like talking to Brooke about this because Brooke, his wife, is up. She has come to Magic much later
Hmm.
than any of us did, but also she doesn't have like the same investment or history with it that we do, and she just loves the fact that like John was like the world's greatest player, and she just likes being like a fan. Like she'll wear like um she made like a custom sweatshirt that just says like John Finkel fan club, you know,
Oh,
and then she'll wear it like when you know at these tournaments or whatever. And then she wanted to make these custom stickers for John to give out to his opponents, right? But then John was very like, you know,
this isn't
not,
like
not,
always the case, right? There was
yeah,
when I was
because
when I was
but
yeah.
he was just like, well, Magic's very serious. It's a serious game, you know. It's a strategy game. You know, we're trying to like uh manage our resources better than our opponents are. And then she's just like, you know,
I remember this weird story. I won't name names, but I was out to dinner around 15 years ago.
with who?
I will not name names. Did you not hear me? Um, and there was this girl who had had too much to drink, and she started crying and talking to a friend of mine who she was good friends with, and she was like, "I don't think I can marry a magic player." It was like the weirdest scene I've ever seen. So like when John's married to someone who's like proud of that, that's like a real thing. Like uh I've certainly seen like a stigma attached. I don't know if it's
Oh,
still attached, but yeah.
what you remember the was it Gizmodo? The Gizmodo journalist that John went on a date with?
Oh yeah, that was horrible. Like
Yeah,
that's I mean, how mean can you be?
Alyssa Berezniak, her name was. I only say that because she's
No, no,
a
go ahead.
public figure, right? She writes for the
Is
Ringer.
she?
Yeah, she writes for the Ringer, your favorite news source.
Is that Bill Simmons? Is that the ringer?
Yeah, I think it was formerly his, right? And then ESPN still. I don't know, but it's funny because you know I have like a general like I'm very like anti her for obvious reasons, right? She went and just did
Yeah.
this insane thing against like one of my best friends to the point where someone linked me an article that she wrote, and I was like, "What?" I was like, "How can you support this person?" And they were like, "What are you talking about?" So
Yeah, I've already written one piece about someone who like went after a Magic player. It's like, I can
yeah.
always add another. I don't. I remember it happening, but I wasn't too close to it. Obviously, it sounds miserable for
Oh yeah,
John.
she.
It's like it seems like a lawsuit worthy kind of thing where you're essentially character assassinating someone.
Well, it was kind of an insane thing because like the story got picked up and then John kind of became like a folk hero,
Hmm.
even more so than he already is, right? But among like
Yeah,
non, outside in the nerd gaming community beyond Magic, and I think it was
yeah.
picked
I mean,
up by
he's a person, not a
yeah, it was
toy
picked up by
fucker.
CBS, RIP,
Yeah.
um, and also famously, I don't know if you remember, there was that gaming TV channel. This is back when people had cable. G4, I think was what it was called.
Hmm.
And there was a host on there. I think her name was Sarah Jean Underwood, but she was like a former Playboy playmate, and she went and on a show asked John on a date, right?
Wow.
And then G4 actually like contacted John to see if he would go on a date. They would film the whole thing, and then John said no
Yeah. Thank
because
God.
he was kind of like a semi-public face figure, especially with like the company that he runs,
Yeah.
and didn't want to endanger that. Plus, he saw what happened with like Tommy Wallamies.
Oh, I don't know what happened with Tony.
Oh, he Tommy Wallamies went on some I think like comedian reality show in Finland.
Oh yeah, I remember him being funny. Yeah.
Yeah, and then but after he went on, they edited it right to make it look like he bombed, right? They just
Ooh,
like
that's
retroactively
dark.
like pieced it together, and that kind of like set his career back by 2 years. When the reality was nothing like that, but they just needed some drama, right? And
Yeah.
then that was very salient in John's mind. So he was
Yeah,
just a man. Yeah.
you want to control your own narrative as much as you can, probably, right?
For me, I was just like, well, no gamble, no future, right? But they also
I'm
said,
glad. Yeah.
but I also had
I'm
a
glad. I'm
lot.
glad he didn't do it.
Well, I had a lot less to lose. Also,
Hmm.
what did they say? A man with nothing to lose is a man with nothing to fear, right? They say that in Daredevil. So
I mean, yeah.
the,
Uh,
the comics. I haven't seen the show. I don't watch TV.
I find TV to be pretty pointless nowadays. It's no longer like it's weird when people are like, "This was on Netflix." I'm like, "Why do you know this?" Just you could read a book or write something or create something. There's so many things going on. You could talk to friends in front of a live audience, but
I
it's
I do I do love movies, but I've slowed down this past month. But
oh,
I watch a lot
really.
of movies generally.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious, like of the last 25 years, like what are the movies that resonate for you still? Because it's as a dad who's also worked in crazy
Well,
environments, like I couldn't imagine watching movies unless it was like highest recommendation, right? From a
well,
Lan
the
D
Iron
movie.
Giant is still A+ for what it's worth,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
it's a good one.
It's funny. Like my friend, oh, you remember her from Austin, Lauren?
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Right? She has two children now, and then she lives in Westchester, which is a suburb of New York, like an hour north of here. And she and her kids are starting to watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, right?
Hmm.
Which recently had a Universes Beyond set, I think.
It did.
And but I think that Avatar: The Last Airbender and the follow-up series, The Legend of Korra, maybe like my favorite TV shows of all time. Full stop. This includes, The Wire, Mad Men, Deadwood, which I've
Hmm.
seen and loved, right? But um, just something about like Avatar just really like blew me away, and I think it's perfect for watching with children. I kind of wish I wonder if I lived closer with my niece and my nephew, if I would watch that with them, right,
Hmm.
or not. Like, I think I would try because I think that there's certainly like no nerd presence in their life, unfortunately.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, their parents were both tax consultants,
So they'll be good at Excel, hopefully.
kind of, except for my niece. My niece is like a competitive dancer. She's like
Hmm.
really good at it. So, um, And then my nephew, despite his brain rot, he's getting really into martial arts, so he's done pretty well for that. So,
Okay. I mean, it sounds like they're developing as people.
yeah, he's not married to Mr. Beast fandom, right?
But he's not a nerd.
No. Um, although
So
like
does it.
it is weird, right? Like when we were growing up, there was
Mhm.
a certain negative connotation, right? Like nerd was like largely pejorative, right? But all of the I talk about this all the time. How about how all the stuff that I loved when I was young just now happens to be the most popular things, right, in the world, and
Yeah.
it's just too much, right? Like Lord of the Rings, comic books, even gaming, right? Um,
Every ultimate, every UB set, you're like,
yeah.
oh, it's like,
Well, I just
oh,
think,
I do like all this, but like it's a little much. Yeah.
or even something like even D&D, right, or just role playing in general is just Critical Role. Don't they have like millions and millions of subscribers, and they're just like swimming in money? I know Dimension 20. They did a show in Madison Square Garden, and it sold out in minutes, right?
Hmm.
And afterward, tickets on the resale market, on the secondary market, were going for like $500,
Wow.
which is pretty insane.
That's crazy. I
Yeah,
mean, it's pretty neat
it,
in its way. It's entertainment, right?
I'd rather have it. It's better for it to be this way than it is the other way. But I just don't relate to it even.
Yeah, I think it is. Your life has to be set up a certain way, and your constitution needs to be a certain way for you to get it. Like you know, yeah, it's funny. I don't know that I've seen people that I love go after like interest, like things that are interests like this. And I don't know, maybe we just have our own. I did have this question of like, what's the your favorite lecture or event that you've ever been to? Because you're likely to like you live in New York, you're a man about town. What connected for you that stuck with you all this time?
It's weird. So I don't like to travel or go on vacation very much, largely.
Yeah. It's a good
And
place to be if you're in New York, it's fine.
yeah, well, that's the reason I'm in New
Culture
York.
comes to you.
I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
yeah, where I think that like what when you go and you travel, let's say you go somewhere for like a week or 2 weeks, you go, you find something that you like and you do it, and you find something else that you like and you do it, and you find something else, and then maybe you don't like it as much, and then you go back and you think about it, and you're like, oh, it was cool to eat at this restaurant, it was cool to go to this museum, it was cool to visit this bookstore, it was cool to see the show, right? But I'm not interested in finding things that I like that I can do one time. I'm interested in finding things like I like, and I want to do them 100 times, right?
Mhm.
And in New York, like you alluded to, it really allows you to do that. And there are just constantly new things coming in.
Mhm.
So you go to shows all the time, and then you can go to the Met. So one of my favorite things to do, and I haven't addressed your question yet, but I
Oh, I
will
know.
get there. Yeah, yeah. But one of the things I really like doing is going to the Met or going to MoMA with someone, even if there's no exhibit to really see. Just
Mhm.
because walking around surrounded by art, I think it's just a great thing to do. And sometimes you'll see something new, or you don't even have to look at the art, but just be surrounded by the art, right? And then you could go to the to look at the Temple of Dendor and see how the light's coming in through that wall. And it's a lot of like open space, and it's pleasant. It's you know, and I talk about how if you didn't live in New York, if you wanted to go to the Met or you wanted to go to like see an opera or wanted to go see a show on Broadway, you basically had to plan your year around it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, if you lived in like Philly or Jersey, right? But but
Don't
realistically,
live there.
yeah, you know what I'm saying, right? I just don't want to, the lawyers and the who are listening in to but actually me, right?
Mhm.
But for all intents and purposes, if you don't live in New York and you want to do these things, you have to plan your year around it, and you're kind of at the mercy of what's showing when you're there, unless you're planning your trip around that show, which is entirely fine, right? But for me, I could just wake up on a Sunday and decide like, oh, I want to go see a show, and then just go see like what shows are available at Rush, right? Or if someone's in town, like let's go to the MoMA. We just go there and walk around there. So that's probably the thing that I like the most.
Mhm.
just the availability of like the things that I love. And I always like tell people this that New York is so like all encompassing and so big that no matter what you're into, there is a New York for you. When I was, destitute 15 years ago, yeah, there were ways to make it work and make it work in
Hmm.
an enjoyable way. And then now that I'm not destitute, it's still working for me, right? I'm not destitute and also not a billionaire, right? If I were a billionaire, probably would still work for me. No,
We'll find out in the next 10 years.
yeah, when everyone's a billionaire,
All right.
as we
Who?
move towards a post-scarcity society. But as far as like individual things,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, do you remember uh, at the end or near the end of the movie Lady Bird when
Hmm.
she's in New York, where she wrote her mom that letter about Sacramento, and then like all the things that she found about Sacramento that really like resonated with her, which
Hmm.
I can discuss this in a second. I think is actually like a huge like failure of the movie. I think the movie is great, but this is like the one huge criticism I have of the movie, and I'll address that in a second. But the sentiment of that is how I feel about New York. Um, the show, like the shows that I've seen, the friends that I've made, the friends that I've spent time with, the things that I've done.
Hmm.
Um, being able, like, even like just going to see like midnight movies at IFC or the old like Landmark Sunshine or at the Metrograph. Um, just all of it. Like I have like some people accuse me of having this very like romantic notion of New York, but I think I just have a very realistic one as someone who lives here and enjoys living here. Despite so, people ask me like, "Oh, well, what do you love about New York, or what do you like about New York?" My sales pitch is always, "Well, um, the city is disgusting, right? It's really gross.
Hmm.
The weather is terrible, and it's expensive, but it's the best place on earth." And I honestly feel that.
Yeah, I took
But
Micah there when she was on spring break, like at 6, and I think it's definitely her favorite place on earth. It's pretty easy, like you said, at any age to just like we'll be back later this year. We'll talk about that
oh,
also.
awesome! Yeah, my
Uh,
niece loved it when she came to visit. I took her to her first musicals because she was really into theater. We went to see, took her to see Wicked, took her to see Sweeney Todd, and then with
wow. Yeah.
Sweeney Todd with Josh Groban and Anna Lee Ashford. And it was really funny because my niece, I think at the time, was 9. And you know Sweeney Todd, right?
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
yeah, yeah. I don't want to spoil anything for you. I don't really care about who else is coming or who else listens to this call. But for you, I care a lot. But at
You
the
might care about
end,
them.
when uh, Todd finds out that Mrs. Lovett had known who Todd's wife was, right? And then
Hmm.
he becomes deranged, starts dancing with her in the basement. And like the music gets really menacing and things feel really like tense. My niece was sitting at the edge of her seat, like watching, and then he shoves her into the oven, and my niece just screams. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
But then she looks around because no one else screamed, and then she starts like laughing really loudly because it was just such an outsized reaction. But I thought it was like great and crystalline and perfect. And then I also
Well,
took her and my sister. We also went to go see Maybe Happy Ending, which I thought was tremendous. It's about two robots falling in love in a futuristic Korea. So
that sounds pretty cool, actually.
it's unbelievable. It's like one of my favorite movies, and it's very short. It's like 90 minutes long only. So, but
It's kind of nice.
yeah, I think it's outstanding. But
Hmm.
my criticism of Lady Bird, by the way, is like so that one scene is so poignant, and it's about how much they love Sacramento. Sacramento ultimately is embedded in like their family culture and their dynamics. But then you watch the entire movie and you get no sense of Sacramento. It could just be any generic town, right?
Yep.
And supposedly this takes place in like 2004 Sacramento. No one's wearing a Stojakovic jersey, right? No one's talking about the Kings, right?
They were very good at basketball.
Yeah,
Like
and
they
they were
should
just
have
like,
been in the finals that year. Yeah.
yeah, well, but it was just like one of those things where no one, um, but you get no real sense of place. Like you watch other movies, right? You're like, oh, well, this is definitely a New York movie, right? But you watch some movies that take place in New York and they don't feel like New York, right? Or some movies you're like, oh, this is an LA movie for sure,
Hmm.
you know. And supposedly Lady Bird was supposed to be a Sacramento movie, and it didn't feel that way to me. So that's like
Have you been to Sacramento?
I've I've seen basketball games in Sacramento, and then I watched Lady Bird. Does that count? Oh, I think I may have driven through Sacramento,
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. I have been
but
to Sacramento. I had to my wife won an award
oh yeah.
at the state senate. And so I got to spend the day there with the state senators, and uh Sacramento has some charm to it. It actually has a lot of like, it reminds me of Baltimore in the good ways that Baltimore isn't appreciated for. Sacramento has a really fun vibe.
So
We
you went to
actually yeah.
you went to Sacramento later in your life, then?
Oh yeah, I have no like, yes, yes, later in my life. Later
Sorry,
in my
yeah.
life.
Sorry to interrupt. You're about to
No,
say
it's all
like
right.
reminds you of Baltimore.
Oh yeah. No. It has a funkiness to it. We actually played in a team tournament at some point at before I had kids, and like we played against this team from Sacramento, and they were all wearing pink, and they were just a really fun team to play against, and they were pretty good. And that does
All right,
like feel
I
that
remember
does
those
feel like,
guys.
did we win or lose? It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Would you
Well,
ever play with my brother again? That's a question that I have, because
yeah. I
you
was.
guys were like, I would. The dynamic between you two was like
Well,
very
he was just.
spicy.
Well, he was just like. I think he's almost like a genius of magic, despite Ben Rubin's like
Yeah.
assertions. Right. Your brother has like a very like powerful, intuitive understanding of formats, but he also like he's high volatility. Right,
Mm.
as we say in the business. He I just remember how he basically like ruined. Like, we made day two, and he ruined like one of our drafts.
Yeah.
Right, like he opened the pack and he saw Selesnya Guildmage and growing ranks, and he was like, "Oh, well, if I take one, my opponent will take the but the guy to my left will take the other because it's such a powerful card, and then I'll get fucked in pack two, and then."
Hmm.
But like it's like an ideal situation because you'd fuck them in packs one and pack three, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And instead he took um Goblin Electromancer, which is like a pretty middling,
It's not very
red
good.
blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially for a first pick, right? Um,
Yeah.
and
For
anyway,
green
the guy,
white, which was the strongest color combination, it was
yeah,
like those are aces, right? Yeah.
yeah. So then the guy to his left was just like, oh my god, he took Selesnya Guildmage, and he took that, and then you took you're like, why is growing rank still here? So then you got fucked packs one and three, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And he was trying to explain this to us, and we just like didn't really understand his reason. Like it felt like he got almost all the way there, and then at the most critical moment, he just like fumbled the ball. And it's kind of an insane thing because this is like an ideal, as a guy who's money drafted so much, right? As much as your brother did, this is like an
Hmm.
ideal spot. So
Oh yeah.
it felt kind of like crazy um, that he didn't recognize that. And also, he was so angry when we built his deck for him, right? Uh, in day one, and then he ended up going 9-2 and admitting that we were right. Do you remember like he also kept trying to interfere with our deck building till like 5 minutes before, and he
Yeah.
kept trying
Yeah.
to build like 3 5 color decks, and I wasn't the one who got spicy. It was you who got spicy
I had trouble managing the
because
personality.
you're like
For
Justin,
sure.
stop, and then you went.
We didn't need the help. We didn't need the
Yeah,
help.
you were like, we don't have time, right? We got 5 minutes left with the build the decks. We have to register everything. So
It
you
was
went
the
and you
most
built.
like the hardest tournament I've ever been in, but not because of the tournament.
Yeah,
It was fun too. Don't we finished 23rd, right? I mean, it was
yeah,
fun,
yeah. It was a lot of fun.
but we didn't play
We
with
did.
each other again, right?
I would play with almost anyone, right? As long as they were
Yeah,
like,
it would be
you know,
fun.
as long as I guess like as long as I either liked them or they were good, and it's better if I liked them and they were good,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's certainly.
But
Yeah.
like, because I do remember this though, right? I played um Azorius, like white blue with a red sideboard for
Mhm.
control matchups, and Justin was red black with Dreadbore and like a 5/4 haste guy for 6, and you were Abzan,
Mhm.
like a grindy deck. But then I put the Cyclonic Rift in your deck because I remember thinking that it
It's
was just
really
like
good.
perfect. Yeah, it ended up being like the best card like all day for you. And no one ever saw it coming. So it made me feel like one of Ben Rubin's proverbial geniuses. So.
Why didn't you, Patrick Chapin, and I do better in our pro tour when we played right
Well,
before I went to Wizards? Yeah,
can I? I have to go to the bathroom real fast, just real quick.
I've never.
Oh,
This has never happened. Yeah, no, go.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, no,
We'll just. I'll
I'm
play the
very,
guitar maybe.
I'm hydrated all the time, and then it runs through. So, give me maybe 1 minute, and I will go into this. You can
Sure,
maybe
man. I
zoom in
sorry,
on the
everyone.
books if you want.
Oh yeah. Let's see what books are over there. Lan had 30 shelves of books back when I lived with him in Austin, and I would guess in New York he's down to those shelves, but they're pretty densely packed. Lan was actually, I think, the best read person I've ever met.
Sorry, I have to stay hydrated because I guess technically I'm still in recovery, but it's good to stay hydrated anyway. And we could talk about that later if you want.
Yeah, I think yeah, that has been an undercurrent of like why I started this project in the first place, which is, you know, we get older and things happen to us and our friends uh, that are not very fun. It comes up in a recurring fashion. You know, I talked to Matt Place earlier. There are a couple of things about Matt Place that occur to me. You guys were friends and like overlapped in Kansas City a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
One, like he lost the Beta Lotus and 27 Beta Duels in Ante once, which is worth a house
Well,
in a nice city now.
a nice house, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
is it? Oh no, a medium house. Like a Beta Lotus is probably like what 50K.
Yeah. I mean, 27 Duels is worth a lot,
We'll
right?
say 27 Beta. That's like a K each, right?
I
More.
the audience probably knows better than I do. Yeah, it
Well,
could be
but
that much.
even if we say
Oh
2K,
yeah,
right?
it's like a
That's 104,000. You're right.
down payment. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Still a
Okay.
lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
money.
Yeah. 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 You could buy a trap house, right?
That's a bad day. That's a bad
Yeah.
day losing that.
No, it's a lot.
Um,
I lost a lot of. I never lost that much, right? I had a box sold, and the box had like 53 revised duels,
yeah.
Power 9 with an extra time walk, but it was all like unlimited, you know.
Hmm.
Um. So, but so you were talking about Matt.
Yeah. So Matt and I were talking, and then Eric came up, and so you were talking
Oh,
about
who
Eric
was
was
my
working. Yeah,
who's my partner on I Came the Game. I just
yeah.
wanted to mention.
The Magic movie that you guys were making, the documentary. He passed away while he was running, and like his heart gave out on the run. And so it just felt like, hey, we're still like here, and we're still remembering a lot of things. Why don't we like kind of get together and say thanks for the fact we all got to know each other in the first place while we can. But I mean, Lan and I have both had our own run-ins with the health
The
law.
the
Yeah.
law. Oh yeah.
Yeah, the doctor, which you can talk to as much as you want, but not at all. Also, it's
Yeah,
not a
we
requirement.
can. We'll address that in a little bit. There was another thing I was going to say
Hmm.
about oh, Nick Zarzicki, who wrote that actually like really like wonderful article on Defector about a year ago about Richard
Hmm.
Garfield.
Yeah.
designing Magic. He is working on a book about Magic actually right now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he came out to visit a couple of times just to hang out and do some like I guess like passive observation, right, of the
Mhm.
Magic scene in New York. And he came to Movie Club a couple of times also, which was great. And I think he's an A+ person. He lives in Toronto, but he mentioned how he thought that the interviews that we did for I Came to Gabe, which was I think we had like 180 hours worth of footage.
They seem really good. Yeah.
Yeah, he thought it was just like this, lost treasure trove, and he thought it was of the utmost paramount importance that we go because
Where
they
are they
exist
now?
right now on digital
Yeah.
tape because we filmed them in 2008, 2010, back
Mhm.
when digital cameras were finally like semi affordable,
Mhm.
but they weren't. It wasn't like they existed on little cards, and transferring these things to a server back then was a non-trivial task. So they exist in on digital tapes. I think like just in a case in Jordan White's closet. So kind of a precarious and kind of scary, right? That these things could just like vanish, or maybe they already
Yeah.
have. But
160 hours is
yeah, it's a lot. We have
quite a lot.
interviews with and this was back in like 2008 to 2010. We have
Who are the
lots of
best
interviews.
interviews?
Oh,
Like,
so I can give you an outline of our what we ultimately settled on as far as like our storyline, even though it's a
mhm,
documentary, right? But like where we ultimately ended up wanting to go.
mhm.
But should I before I go into there, which I will go to before I go into like discussion about health, should I answer your question about why you, me, and Patrick Chapin failed?
Yeah.
At,
Why do you think? I mean,
well,
sometimes. Yeah. Yeah.
he was deep in his other career at that time,
Okay.
right?
Sure.
Is the main. Oh, but I do have one good story from that pro tour. Um, so I was unceremoniously kicked off of the other team I had put together, which was Terry Sang and Brian Kibler,
Hmm.
and they thought that they're like, well, Lan, he doesn't love Magic, so maybe he won't even show up at this pro tour. So we have to get someone who's more reliable. So they kicked me off and they got Mike Bergoli, right, instead,
Oh yeah.
who I
Yeah,
love
Mike.
and I think he's
Yeah.
great, but didn't feel great. So that's why like, I contacted you and Patrick, right, and we
Hmm.
formed a team
Hmm.
and we went and we played against them. I think I'm gonna say in the 03 bracket. We were both 03,
I do remember that. Yeah.
and we play against them. And Terry, I think he was playing against you, was dropping these very like unsubtle comments. He's like, really need this extra pro point to stay on the tour, right? Because I think he had 18 points and he needed 20. He's like, could really, if we went out, I'll get 2 points and that would really keep me on the train. And he just
Yeah.
kept saying stuff like that, without, because you can't outright ask. But I was pretty, I was not feeling generous, especially given my like unceremonious exit from that team. And I got paired against Kibler, and I got him with that card Ensnare. And this is like another thing. It shows you like how different Magic is because Ensnare used to be considered basically a bomb in limited.
Hmm.
It's like
Hmm.
4 casting cost, stun all your opponent's creatures.
It was really not fair. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, we're in a board stall. Now I win. Whereas nowadays, you can't even imagine like getting to that state, right? Spending 4 mana to do that. Um,
Hmm.
but I got Kibler with that. So, but I do think that primarily it was just like Patrick was in a weird spot in his life, and I think we were all kind of like weird spots, right? Like I was probably the one who was like the most left behind. Like Patrick was doing his thing. You were already, I think, like transitioning towards Wizards, right?
Yeah. I actually
But
submitted my designs from your house to
yeah.
Wizards, like before I went there. Right.
Oh yeah, and also there was like the weird thing where I was dating like Rachel at the time, and she
Oh
came
yeah.
over with her friend. Uh, I forget her name. Starts with a K. But like Patrick just like immediately like globbed onto her and wanted to hang out. Like went with them to the grocery store like right away. And I was
Our
just
heads were
like,
not in the game.
Yeah.
It was a
So
very talented team, but our heads were not
yeah, I would
in the
say
game.
right, like I would run it back, right? I would run that team. Like the chemistry made. So would you say you had better chemistry with Patrick or with your brother?
I mean, I consider them to be very similar people, funny enough. In fact, like when I met Patrick, I was like, this is the closest to my brother I've ever met.
Amazing.
Um, yeah, I think but I would probably get I think having talked to Patrick in the last month, they feel very different to me now. And I think they would both feel pretty similarly to play with. Like
Mm.
with Patrick, you'd probably give him the keys and let him go. You kind of have to take a role ahead of time and like
Yeah.
plan out who's going to do what, because when you have personalities that are that strong and like have like their own like way of seeing the world, it's not that helpful to try to have like, you know, it's not the right power structure where everyone's chatting. You know what I mean? Different groups
Yeah.
will work differently, and so
Yeah.
I
It's not like we're at the Constitutional Convention, right?
yeah. Sometimes like you're on a team and like I was playing with John Hunka and John Marks. Like I think Hunka was on the Nationals team. Marks was like a legend of anti-drafting, and we were playing, and Josh Bradford, who was this pro from Florida, was like, "Dude, they want you to build the decks," and I was like, "Oh, all right, I'll build the decks." And so like you have to find the right power dynamics for the group,
Yeah.
so that you can get to the best place. And I think with those two, I think they are happiest driving is my read.
Yeah. I was gonna say I think that our chemistry was probably better with Justin because we could
Yeah, it was.
more we can rein him in more because you're his older brother.
It does help a lot, right? Like
Yeah.
he, like I mean Patrick and I have been friends for a long time too. But I think, yeah, Justin and I lived together for a long time, so it does
Yeah.
make it a little easier to connect fast, right?
Yeah.
He's pretty fun to play with. Like just like the self-inflicted damage on a team is like, why are you wearing like what is it called when you wear like barbed underwear? Or whatever?
Oh,
Why are we all?
yeah, well, like the was it the self flagellation or whatever the hair shirts when you're doing
Yeah.
penance or whatever penance?
Yeah, like why are we hurting ourselves so much? We did so much. We did more damage to ourselves in that tournament together than we did to our opponents, and we did well. So like
Yeah.
the
When you
psychic,
compare
yeah,
even the chemistry that we had with like because you and I played like with different thirds, right? But like compared
right.
with like Andy Longo.
So easy, so good to play with Andrew Longo, and then even Herberholtz like was wonderful to partner with. We were a pretty easy team, right?
Yeah. So it was
Um,
but like Patrick and Justin were both like, stratospheric talents, but very headstrong.
yeah,
So
I do they even have team tournaments anymore? That was actually the only thing I liked
well that was the reason
about the Pro Tour. Yeah.
that's the reason I got back into Magic was I
Hmm.
was like, oh my gosh, they have like a team tournament. And this was like,
It's so much
uh,
more fun, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it was in Grand Prix San Jose. So I hit you up, right? And I don't even know how I wanted to play with you,
Hmm.
and I don't think we had a third. And you were like, well, we can get Justin. And I was like, great. I know
He's still playing. He's pretty good. Yeah.
I was like, well, he was one of the best players in the world, so why not, right? See, so we all went out there, and it was funny because they never did a team tournament with that structure ever again, right?
Hmm.
Because this was the first one that they had since like 2000, early 2000s. So I guess there's probably an almost 10-year hiatus, and they didn't know how to do it. So they just did team sealed for the first day, and then they did 3 drafts.
Man, it was pretty weird.
Yeah, and then the first day was like 11 rounds of sealed. So
We were
it
up
was,
like really late in the night. I remember people like watching us. We played really talented teams. There was one
yeah.
team we played against, and like the guy introduced himself, and I'm like, "Hey, man, my name is Brian. I don't know who you are." He was like, "I won the last Pro Tour." I'm like, "I do not know who you are. I
Oh,
do not care."
that's what was that the
Like,
Tim Ayton team?
yeah, we actually like had a really great match, and we had this thing come up at the end where we decided to like pick who won, right? Because it was
Yeah,
a draw state, and we,
it would have been a
yeah,
draw, and then we conceded to them.
right. But we had a
It,
choice where they could concede or we could concede, and we debated it. And
Yeah, this was AJ Soccer. Charles Gindy, who you played against, and
Yeah, it was really nice. I liked him quite a bit.
and Tim Ayton. Because like that situation came up earlier where we had Lethal on board and the other team wouldn't concede. I think it was a coworker of yours actually from Zynga.
That was a different match where
Yeah.
yeah,
And
Hugh Moore.
yeah, and then you were quite forgiving because he's like a coworker, but I never forgave it.
I didn't forget. He's actually in the book, and I softened the part where he's in it. He's in this chapter. It's a really interesting story where he starts wrestling with his friend at a game store because the friend is going to smoke, and he's worried about the friend's health. And so he's like, I need to prevent you from smoking so that you live a longer, more productive life.
By any means necessary.
So it was just like, I knew Hugh and he's an interesting dude. And so I expected him to be that way. So I was like, okay, that's Hugh. But yeah, if you're not like in the know or like okay with that, man, it's a little unique perspective for sure.
Yeah. But so with regarding our documentary, we had like I think a lot of really amazing interviews, right? Not to brag. But I think that ultimately we were actually in Kyoto because our plan, like the structure that we had set up was I told Eric that I thought that the best way to figure this out was to cast a wide net, interview up and coming pros, and then the ones who were just the most compelling, we would eventually zero in on them.
Yeah.
And at one point, this is all during LSV's ascension, right? Like LSV was like on the come up. Well, he was kind of like he thought he was a has-been, right? Because he had done well at nationals over 3 years. I think he got first and third at a couple of those nationals. And then he hadn't had Pro Tour success yet. And while we were filming, we didn't go to Berlin, but he ended up winning Berlin. And then at Kyoto, he gets second. And he begins like this toward run. And he becomes like not just one of the best players in the world, but one of the best players in history, right?
Yeah.
And I remember talking to Randy, who was still deeply involved with the Pro Tour at this time. I think he was doing commentary. Randy said, well, the main character has to be LSV, right? It just has to be the story. And I didn't say anything, but it's actually, that's not an interesting story, right? The guy who made it, right? The story is like about trying to get there, you know?
I think the story should be about Eric if you like redid it today, right? To me, like that ends up being an interesting like way
it could be like
take it.
Well, our main character that we decided on Kyoto, like I took a shower, I had this epiphany, and I presented it to Eric, and I told Eric that our main character should be Sam Black, and he was also traveling around the world at the time with Godenis Vidrugas and Brian Cowell. So like these three guys from Madison were playing Magic together, but Sam was just so compelling on camera, and he's such a weird guy, but he's so self-awarely weird, and he also had like a reputation among other Magic players at the time, but he's also aware of that reputation among other Magic players. So he wasn't very liked back then.
Okay.
You know, and so like watching him and interviewing him and like, yeah, the way I framed it was that he was a nerd among nerds. But we did this interview where he talks about how he knows he has a reputation for being like cheap, you know, penurious with his money. And he says that the reason he's this way is because the money's an inheritance from his grandmother. And he feels kind of a responsibility, you know, to safeguard it, right? To not squander it. But then his grandmother at one point his grandmother had Alzheimer's, but at one point she was kind of lucid. If she tells him, if she gives him some advice, she says, well, the best thing that you can do to broaden your horizons is to travel. And then so Sam has an epiphany and he says, oh, that's what I'll do, right? I'll travel and I'll play Magic, right? So this way I'll broaden my horizons, but I'll also win the hearts and minds of the Magic community because everyone will see how serious I am about Magic, right? So Sam begins like this years long journey of traveling around the world to South America, to Europe, I think to Asia, just playing these Magic GP because this is like during the height of like the GP boom,
Mhm.
and then he gets like second at nationals, and then so he kind of, I think his gambit worked because people were like, "Wow, look at this guy! He really like cares about Magic and stuff." But it was funny because we leaked to a couple of people um, that Sam was going to be our main character, and they were really,
The Isaiah Thomas Michael Jordan thing.
yeah, well, they were really against it because they were like, "Well, he'll make Magic look terrible, right? He's such a weirdo, right? And I was like, look, you can't think that Eric and I, who are both like deeply involved in the Magic world, right, who have such history of Magic, would ever do anything like just to besmirch Magic, right? We're gonna pursue what we think is like the best story, right?
Yeah.
We're not gonna try to run we're not gonna try to write a spin article about like Steve OMS and turn it into a hatchet job, right? And I think Wizards at the time knew this because they basically gave us like unfettered access. It was insane. Every time we would show up, they would give us like VIP press badges. We could go behind the scenes.
That's
And then,
awesome.
and also we went to Wizards headquarters. We interviewed like Rosewater. We have multiple interviews with like Garfield and stuff. But the interviews with Sam Black were great. We interviewed his mom, right? And
Mhm.
she was great. Although it was kind of weird because like at one point, like Sam came in and sat down and just like watched us interviewing her, right? Which creates like that Heisenberg
Mhm.
effect. But I did my best to ignore him and just let the conversation go naturally. And she was very good at like letting the conversation go. And we weren't trying to like get her to talk trash about Sam at all. But she told some
Mhm.
like stories about how he was like a weird kid, which is like, you know, I mean, that's I'm not telling any tales here, right? It's not
Yeah, yeah.
the biggest surprise, but he was like a great interview. Patrick was a great interview. Ben Rubin was
Mhm.
great. Churian was a great interview.
Mhm.
Um, John was a surprisingly medium as an interview. Um, Rosewater was clearly fantastic.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah, Rosewater was really good because he was is very polished and he has media training. But when we were talking to him, he felt like he was just like giving us the truth, just telling us what he actually thought. And I wondered whether if we did it again, he would still feel that way.
Yeah, I'm talking to him in a couple weeks on here, and it's interesting. I saw like he came up in my feed the other day, with one of the big streamers of the day, and like it was awesome. It was really polished, and obviously what we're doing here is at a different level, not from a polished perspective. Everyone here is really sharp and telling great stories by and large, but it's real, right?
Yeah.
And it's well intended, but it's real, and I think he's an interesting dude. It was interesting writing the book. Mark doesn't show up that much because Mark isn't like someone like I think of that much from like making a Magic perspective, even though we did it a lot. Um, the things I remember about him are not from Magic. It's like he's a really interesting dad. Like they were a really cool, warm household that was very creative in a way that you don't normally see, and that's kind of what stuck with me. So it'd be a really interesting chat because the things I remember are about him as a person, not about the game at all.
I remember after Grand Prix Seattle in 1999, just he had that big holiday party and he just invited a bunch of pro players over
Yep.
there. And
He
I
was
was
very
like,
generous about that sort of thing.
yeah. And it was just pretty weird because I think I showed up with it was like Flores Kibler and Bob Maher, I think. Right?
All fine people.
Yeah,
All
but it
fine
was just
people I
like,
have
yeah,
enjoyed in this life. Yeah.
it was great. I never got a chance to play Mood Swings with him. Um,
Oh yeah, I remember that game.
he would always play it
He's
with the Pro Tour winner.
oh, that's fun. He had it at work a bunch of the time. It was his like one of his designs. That's another aspect. It'll be interesting to see how that conversation goes. There are a couple of conversations where there were rivalries, in terms of I didn't pick up on it because I was like in my 20s and don't care as much about
Yeah.
success as everyone else. But I think Yeah, everyone was trying to make it to where they want to go as a creator or as a business person or et cetera. And so these, not everyone gets to win every time. And so
I,
there's some interesting dynamics.
I actually had a conversation with a former Wizards employee, Dave
Hmm.
Petty,
Yeah.
who I worked with at SIG, and I always remember Dave Petty from the Pocket Players Guide,
Hmm.
because he was the winner of the first ever Magic tournament.
Wow.
Dave Hurricane Petty, and he told me that he designed Necropotence
Wow.
and did the free card mechanic and alliances.
Cantrip. Yeah.
Yeah, and oh, the free spell, like the Force of Will one.
Oh, Force of Will. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but he you're clearly a brilliant guy. He was a quant at SIG, but he was part of like Richard Garfield's like PhD cohort at Penn.
That's pretty
But
neat.
yeah, a bunch of sharp guys there. But one thing he told me was he said that it was once it got to the point where Hasbro was going to, well, I think where Hasbro was going to buy Wizards. He said that people begin maneuvering for more power, right?
Oh, yeah. And shares, right?
Yeah, and he said
Both of
that,
those things.
and he said it was just a thing that was very distasteful and almost like toxic to him, because like people were like, "Oh, we're just gamers. We don't care about money or politics, right, or power." But then inwardly, they were secretly trying to maneuver, right, and just like try to get a bigger slice of the pie. And he was like, "This feels really gross to me." So he went
Well
to
aware of
SIG.
this. Well aware of this conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So and then he went to SIG. He went to SIG, and he said, "Well, here everybody's up front. We want as much money as possible." Right. And then like with that bit out of the way, you could have a more honest conversation. Is how he felt.
Yeah. At our
So
last company, we were like, hey, let's just come up with what you need. If we can't give it to you, we'll move on. And it just felt right. It was like, oh, this is pretty easy. If you aren't playing a game and you just want to make a good decision for both sides as fast as possible, you should be able to do it. And if you can't, that's usually a flag that like that's not a good fit, given like you need to be making a lot of decisions really well, really fast. If the negotiation ends up being this weird back and forth and like uncomfortable thing, like you don't belong here, right?
no.
So yeah, I totally get that. And that's actually like the dynamics we're talking about in the design world too. I think I kind of like everyone and I understand why all the dynamics played out the way they do, but not everyone likes everyone. Um, and so it's interesting. The Rashomon aspect is interesting. The fact that everyone can't win at the same time ends up being problematic always.
Yeah, that's part of why in my exploration of games, I felt like I got a lot of competitiveness and optimization out of the way playing so much Magic at such a high level that I did, that
Mhm.
like that kind of stuff like doesn't interest me as much anymore. So like sometimes people want to play like board games, right? And I'll play them. But a lot of the times you're just trying to solve the same problem in a different way, given like different
Yeah.
constraints. You're like, "Oh, well, what's mispriced here? Right? Is wheat cheap right now, or is it rope that's cheap?"
Yeah,
Right?
it's really interesting until it's not. And I feel
So
that. Yeah,
yeah,
I
so a
feel that
lot
for
of
sure. Yeah.
and the things that are interesting, like for my friend's birthday recently, he wanted to do a board game night, and we played Sheriff of Nottingham,
Hmm.
which was like it's just like a bluffing game. And I won clearly, but
Congrats.
the thing that was interesting wasn't the game theory math, right? You're like,
Mhm.
oh well, what should my bluffing frequency be, and how much value should I be trying to get out of my bluffs, right? That part was like less interesting to me than the hamming it up when you're the sheriff. That was more interesting. I was like, so what's going on here, fellas? What do you got here? You trying to smuggle some goods in? Is that what's going on here? Like just giving people like the interrogation light. Like that was more fun to me. And then so I've gotten into role playing.
Yeah, acting and role playing seemed like
Yeah,
a
more
natural
recently. Like
graduation.
I hadn't role played for um like 25 years, probably more than 20 years, right? And during the pandemic, I started following these guys who are like actual play people. Like they would stream, they wouldn't stream, but they would put like video on demand of their sessions and stuff up. And it was just something that was good for me to while I was working, since I wasn't going into the office at the time, just to put on like late at night, right? And I was like, I like these guys, and I wanted to support them, so I just like began supporting them on Patreon. And I joined their Discord and just became friends with them. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Gamehole Con, which is in Madison. I could visit Kowal and some of the other Madison people while I was out there, but I could meet these people and also just start playing role-playing games. And then I did, and then randomly...
I have a Kowal story for after this, but go on.
Yes, awesome. One of my favorite people in the world. I actually, weirdly, I won the Cthulhu tournament that they had there. I think they stopped holding tournaments just because it's like a weird thing to do.
Yeah, it is really
for
weird.
role-playing. Yeah, but in the old days, like when role-playing was first invented, they had a lot of tournaments at these cons where you basically have like a sheet that said like, oh, did the party do this? Did you do this? Who did this? Right? So it's just like knowing what to investigate, to survive, and then like what roles were, you succeed. So it was a combination. It was like basically like winning a craps tournament, right? So I guess in the old days. But this one I felt like more validated because it was decided by the judges who decided like, oh, who role played well. And it was a lot of fun because I played the setting was Call of Cthulhu, but it took place at the Isle of Wight Music Festival.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I played a
you have a huge advantage there, yeah.
Yeah, I played a jaded village voice music writer who was trying to disassociate from the art punk scene that he was in and trying to like find transcendence through honest and earnest music. So meanwhile,
yeah. You're like the most like cultured person in the universe, or certainly a candidate. So like anything that taps into sort of like any cultural moment that you would know in depth. Like I think you're not an encyclopedia, but you have an encyclopedic. It's like you have studied a lot.
It was just like, it was so much fun because they had these giant screens they were projecting like actual footage from the festival. Yeah. And I wanted my character, I was like, oh, okay, right, because he's in the art punk scene, he's gonna hate prog rock and he's gonna hate like, he hates the Moody Blues, right? And he hates what's that band with that did Aqua, Jethro Tull, right? So just like all that kind of stuff. But he's there to like witness like Jimi Hendrix, and possibly like witness transcendence. So it was a tremendous amount of fun. But that really greased my wheels a lot and got me thinking about games, because a lot of times people think about games as purely competitive, right? But in game theory, where you have like non-zero sum games, right? And you can have cooperative games. And it's interesting to me if you're role playing in a really interesting manner, you could get to a place that you wouldn't have been able to get to on your own, right? Like a lot of times when you're playing Magic, right, you're just like, well, if I would have countered that spell, right, then the path would have been clear. But unfortunately, I didn't. So there are only like so many paths, right, that you could take, and the paths aren't always interesting because you're like, oh, well, did this spell resolve or not? Did this creature, survive or not, right? Did you make this block or not? Because like you remember Matt Oliver, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, one of my best friends. He's actually has a residency with Hamilton Lighthouser in town, who's the lead singer of the Walkmen. And they're playing 4 shows a week at the Carlisle Cafe in March. And he also has a mini residency at this club in the East Village called Lucinda's, where he has to play like country influenced guitar music. So he's still doing his thing, which is awesome. But while they were recording their album, which was like their only album that they had, they released on a major label, one of the songs, he wrote placeholder lyrics for them, right? And he didn't know what he wanted the lyrics to actually be, or what he wanted the song to be about. So he muddied the mix, right? Like he submerged the vocals beneath the instrumentals and just like really like muddied them up. And then he had me, Bill, and Sam like listen to the song separately and transcribe what we thought we heard.
Mhm.
And then he took these notes, and then from that, it got him to a place that he couldn't have gotten to on his own, and then he wrote the lyrics to the song
That's
from
really
that.
cool.
Right. And that like really stuck with me. And like Eric's sister would draw left-handed. She's right-handed, but she's an artist, but she would draw left-handed because it got her to a place uh, that she wouldn't have been able to get to on her own, because she's a very like proficient technical artist. But like, with her left hand, she doesn't have nearly as much control, right? And she would make mistakes, but these were mistakes that she wanted to like bubble in. And I think about that when I think about role playing games, right? When you play them a certain way, because you're collaborating with someone and you're doing this kind of thing, and you get to a place that you wouldn't be able to get to on your own. And that's what happens with real conversations. And that's like what I find interesting these days about games playing, not
Yeah,
necessarily about trying to like win, right? Like I think like you and I play like Magic at a very high level, and while we never like won at all, there's no winning at all either, right? Like you win a pro
yeah,
tour. What does that mean? There's another pro tour, right?
yeah. I went to trivia night with my wife. Well, we went to dinner at this place like a month ago, and she's like, "Let's play," and I'm like, "All right, let's play." And like for her, she's like, "Let's try to win. I care about winning." And for me, it's like I will never care about winning again. Like not trying to win is actually far more fun most of the time for like the entire population, right? If we're all not trying to win or no one tries to win, we all win. And so it's not that competition is always bad. It is fun sometimes to care, but it's I like I'm taking my daughter to see Who's Live anyway in a couple days, because that improv is just so wonderful and fun, and it's just people bringing out the best in other people and trying to set up things in a similar fashion to what you're describing. The improvisational element and like telling a story that goes somewhere is really neat. Did in the Isle of Wight thing? Did you have a progression through the kind of music that was playing?
Yeah,
That was
because
like something. Yeah,
they had a real schedule. They adhered to the real schedule,
that's really
right?
cool.
And because everything was documented, there's just tons of like footage on YouTube,
It's an
right?
album you have to earn your way through.
Yeah. So we were
That's
going
cool.
through, and like we had a timeline, right? So that's why like I think it was actually this. It was actually really funny because of our interaction with the groups. This was in the second round, um, and we had to perform some ritual to prevent these cultists from doing their thing, right?
Yeah.
And we actually rolled back-to-back critical failures. So the thing broke, so we weren't able to perform the ritual. And then I was like, okay, here's what we could do, right? Because we knew that the ritual required like a critical mass of people. We knew that Hendrix was closing the festival. He was going to do this huge thing. So I
Mhm.
was like, what we should do is take the songs, because there were rumors that George Harrison was in attendance at the festival, right?
Mhm.
And this is like obviously post Beatles breakup. And I said that we should like pretend to be roadies or whatever, sneak back there, give Hendrix like the magical instrument or whatever, and say that this is George Harrison's new song, and have him perform it on stage, and then like fix everything, right? Which I thought
Mhm.
was like pretty ingenious. And we were back there doing this stuff, and then one of the other players is like, "Come on, what is this bullshit?" Right? I didn't come here to engage in this sort of like social engineering. I want to roll some dice. So, uh, but it kind of put a kibosh on these plans, even though we were like halfway through it. I was like, we're already backstage. So, but like some of the other guys, they literally went to like the gift shop and were like, well, what weapons are there?
Hmm.
And it felt very weird. It's like sometimes when you watch a movie and the actors are basically like in different movies. You're like, have you ever seen that movie like House of Gucci? It's pretty terrible.
Mm-mm, no, I
Or
try to avoid terrible.
yeah, or May December. It was like another medium movie. But
Mm-mm.
basically, like House of Gucci, you have like Adam Driver and like Jared Leto and Lady Gaga. They're all acting like they're in different styles of movies. Like one's like, oh, this is like a realistic like historical drama. One's like, this is like an over the top thriller.
Mhm.
So it felt that way when we were playing that game. But it was funny because like to your point earlier, I will say that when I divorced myself from competition or tried to, I thought it was like one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. And maybe it had a negative impact with regard to material success and ambition. Like it certainly like dulled my ambition,
Yeah.
but it made me a happier person, and it made me like more comfortable trying to figure out um like I'm not like a Neville Chamberlain type who's trying to appease people, but
Hmm.
it is easier to just try to like get along, right? And it really like coming to this mindset really gave me a it really put a sour taste in my mouth with regarding to like negging culture, you know?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Even among like friends would like oh, it's just ribbing, you know, but I think
No,
that
be
that kind of
constructive.
I think that kind of negativity really over time like it like detracts, you know? It
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't be constructive all the time. Like, be
yeah,
constructive all the time. Like, just be helpful all the time. Like, that's
yeah.
fucking awesome. Like you can do it. Everyone can do it. It's actually like a company value that like we instituted at the last company I was at, like on my doing. And I think it's one that I kind of want always. And it's something as a parent you're like reinforcing all the time. Like, it's the simplest thing to say. It's like, hey, if you're making someone feel bad, you're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I like by and large, that's how I feel. Sometimes, like people just say nonsense. You kind of have to put a kibosh, and you're like, look, that's not right. That can't possibly be right,
It's
right?
really hard when, yeah, someone's
Yeah,
likes talking a lot about something that can't possibly be useful to talk about. You're like, You're burning my lifetime. I have only so much time left.
yeah,
I'm sorry, but like we cannot talk about this. Yeah.
or when their analysis is like wrong or disingenuous, you're just like, look, you know, I could see where you're coming from, but that can't possibly be right. So,
Yeah. That's a
but
hard conversation. Usually that happens with family and then it's awkward ever after. You're like, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
It's a hard choice, but I had to make it. And not my internal family, immediate family, that has not happened with. They are still on team Schneider. So
I could.
Kowal. Oh no,
Oh yeah,
go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. Tell your Cowell story. He's
So there's
like I
two.
said, I've seen Brian, and I met his wife because of Game Hole Con. So I've seen Brian a lot, and we've gotten like more in touch recently. He's been amazing. He's like I said, he's one of my favorite people in the world.
So Brian owns Misty Mountain Games now, right? He bought it
Yeah.
a while ago. And Brian, so I was at Chris Pakula's house and I was playing around with some friends and we started this Tinker deck
Oh,
design
this was
for an
like
extended pro tour.
long ago. I thought you meant like recently.
Yeah. Oh no, it's 30 years ago almost,
Yep.
or and so we're like, Lan Kibler, here's our design for this Tinker deck. Why don't you? Maybe it just went to you. And so you,
Yeah,
Kibler,
yeah.
and
Because
Dan.
Kibler wasn't qualified, but he showed up.
Right. So there's this tournament. I passed the baton to Lan, who works with Brian Kibler, Dan Burdick, and Brian Kowal on this Tinker deck that almost gets you into the top 8 and did really well in the tournament. Right. Both of you made the
Yeah,
money high. So
yeah. Two of us
and
played it. We got 12th and 27th, and I fumbled my win and in
mhm.
against Hector Fuentes in round 13, um, because I hate to blame Dan, but I'm going to blame Dan. Dan like gave me bad sideboarding advice
Mhm.
that I didn't critically evaluate and just like
It sounds like
internalized.
you're blaming yourself.
Yeah, but like, well, if he hadn't said, if he hadn't like given me the push and
Be
anchored this,
constructive.
yeah, I wouldn't have had the idea. But I mean, but it's trivial though. It should have been obvious to anyone. He basically said that you want to keep all your mana in against control decks because you want to get as fast a start as possible. When
Mhm.
clearly it's like the opposite is true, right? You don't care about being fast. You care about threat density because you'll have a non-trivial amount of mana anyway, right? You'll have more mana than they will anyway because your deck has so much mana that at some point you could stack multiple threats, right, to get through. So
Mhm.
that's what you want is just like threat density
Mhm.
rather than a bunch of mana with nothing to do, which is what happened.
Yeah.
Anyway, and once I did the post mortem, I was like, but
So I wrote up the chapter, but I forgot Kowal in it, and I edited him back in. So I wrote this book as like a hey, I'm going to iterate on it and get it right. And people helped me do that. But I told Kowal, I gave him permission. So if he ever sees your copy of a book and sees a version that didn't have him in it, he can sign his name in, which is fun. But he's in all of it now.
Oh,
But
awesome.
I'm sorry, Brian Kowal. I did
You know,
not mean to forget you. I'm just old.
Brian Cowell also has a little known but very interesting credit, like design credit
That's it. Okay. What is
in
that?
so I don't you didn't play much D&D, right? Or you don't know much about D&D lore,
There's
but
some,
he
but yeah.
he got a design credit in the Planescape box set.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Well, this doesn't make any sense," but he is from like Milwaukee, and like TSR was based in like Lake Geneva, and he's deep in the gaming world. So, and like, how many people could be named Brian Cowell that are interested in D&D that would be in the same area that have like these same interests, you know? And
Mhm.
I asked him about it. He's like, "Oh yeah, you're the first person who's just seen that, you know," and like thought about it. And I was like, "What?" So
That's awesome.
yeah, it
Yeah, I
was
mean,
really
he's
interesting.
it doesn't surprise me that much. It's a talented gamesman. And close. It's amazing how close he's been to games for so long. Like there are
Yeah,
people
very
like,
sharp.
yeah, yeah. Huh, huh.
But but
Yeah.
weirdly, I will say that I guess the segue, the lack of competitiveness on my end, um, basically like became tied to being with like a lack of being like goal oriented and a lack of ambition, right?
Hmm.
But which also like translated into just being more in the moment, right? Which was like it sounds like pretty hackneyed at this point. Like, oh, you gotta live your best life, you gotta live in the moment, right? But I think it's true because I don't when I think this is pretty funny because like this is me engaging in introspection, but I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm a super introspective person, right?
Hmm.
He said introspectively or during a moment of introspection,
Yeah, I've
but
had a
it's just
few.
oh good.
I can see you not being the most competitive person in the world. I think the person that has been the most like enigmatic from like a reconnecting perspective is probably Randy, who
Yeah,
like is was like when we knew him like a very
famously
competitive person. Yeah,
insane.
and when I talk to him now, he's like, winning isn't everything, and I kind of love
Huh?
that. And it's like very, that one's an interesting one where I don't think I understand the whole story, and I probably won't. But
Yeah,
it was like Justin Gary had a similar sentiment where he's like, you know, he's another one who you think, man, that's a competitive person, but he's not living his life to make the most money in the shortest amount of time, right? So like,
like
yeah,
I will say like Randy, for example, even 10, definitely 15 years ago was like always going to like the World Board Gaming Championship,
yeah, he's a super sharp gamer, really
but super
smart,
play. I think
competitive
he
person. Yeah,
he may have won
he did.
at least 1 year, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think multiple times is
Yeah,
my guess.
but I just mean to have someone who is just like I guess like we all go through that, like was able to divorce himself
Yeah.
from that sort of competition because like when I was trading, everyone else was super competitive, and I guess that if you're not trying to make as much, trying to get the highest P&L possible, what are you doing, right?
That is that industry. Yeah.
Yeah, and but it was funny too when Tommy Wallamies was he was in Austin for a semester studying abroad, and he told me he was like, "Oh, I would have no trouble teaming with you for a pro tour if you were less okay with losing," is what he said, because
Hmm.
we would. It was weird because I would actually. He was. This was like when he was like very good. I think he had multiple top eights from his time in
Yeah.
Austin at the pro tour,
Hmm.
and but I would like beat him in random drafts and random games, and I guess he saw like my talent, but I also just like didn't care that much about Magic. So, and he said that I needed to be more competitive to uh, to be more successful, and that may be true. But
Yeah. I think it is like the people who are really competitive tend to win
Yeah,
in
like
life and everything, right? Yeah.
yeah. But for me, it actually because I tend to like live a life like relatively free from regrets, right?
Yeah, me too.
Just be yeah, just because like you want to learn from your mistakes, right? And you want to like not repeat the mistakes. Like what is it, like George Santayana's like famous edict, right?
Hmm.
Those who don't learn from history. But at the same time, you can't dwell on these things. Like what's the purpose of it, right? And weirdly, that was I think really abetted my recovery from like you know from the surgery I had. Like for those who don't know, in July 2024, I had a quintuple bypass, and
It's insane.
afterwards for recovery, I was not dwelling about well what got me here, like what decisions did I make, what have I been doing wrong. I did ask the doctor. I was like, what happened? Why is my heart so blocked up? He's like, yeah, it's hereditary, don't worry about it. I was
Yeah,
like,
that's
oh
that's always their answer, pretty much. You
yeah. I
couldn't
was
have
like,
stopped it.
yeah, well, because like I don't drink and I don't smoke.
You walk all
And
the time in a walking city,
yeah,
right?
but as I'm learning in rehab, I should be even more active than that, right?
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna take a walk after this.
which
Like
which I will.
convinced.
Yeah, I'm going to rehab later. But to the point, right? Like with regard to not like living a life of regret and just kind of being in the moment. I never like had an existential crisis like afterward, right? When I was recovering and when I was weak, I always just thought, well, this is the new normal. What do I have to do now, right? Like, oh, I should be eating like more of these kinds of food, less of these kind of foods. I should be like, exercising more, right? And that basically is just like my north star. One of the things that was actually really interesting was a friend of mine. She's a neuropsychologist, Anna Mullins. She did a study, and the study concluded that the greatest danger after major surgery was actually loneliness. And it's kind of interesting to hear that because there's so many things that can go wrong. But you can see, I guess, like the cascading effects, right? Where if you're lonely, you're forced to do these things on your own, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you shouldn't be doing, just cleaning or handling, like lifting things that you shouldn't be lifting because they're too heavy. But then it causes like it has these cascading effects where you're just like psychologically and emotionally, you're like, oh, if there were other people in my life, right? If someone was here, they could be like helping me with this, but they don't, right? And I'm alone and I'm doing these things that like I'm struggling with. And maybe it's like my life choices that led me to this. You know what I mean? Right.
Mm-hmm.
It just like has all these things that like build on each other. And I was super fortunate to have like such a tremendous like social network, a tremendous support like afterward. I think like something like 30 people visited me at the hospital. Super lucky.
That's
Um,
incredible.
and then afterward, people would come by. They would just visit, bring food, just help clean up my apartment. My brother stayed with me for a couple of weeks. John, who's like become like more of a recluse these days, would just come out to like watch like movies and sports or the Olympics or whatever. And it made me like really appreciate a lot of the friendships I had made, the relationships I had made, and like Pakula, who we've talked about in this call, who's like super successful, right?
Hmm.
But he said that like he said something that really made me feel, I guess, like really good about a lot of these things, because he said like, well, this is like kind of like a referendum on the way you've lived your life, right? And it
Hmm.
must be validating to see that like these people want to support you at this moment when there's like no real incentive for them to. You know what I mean? Like as a
Hmm.
rational classical economic actor, right? It's not like
Yeah.
they get to spend time on my super yacht, right? Afterward. But like I think it really like helped a lot with regard to um like I said, like Pakula said, like validating like the way like I've been thinking about things, the way I could kind of live things, right?
You've
Like I
lived a
just
good life.
yeah, just like you said, to be constructive rather than like destructive, right? To think about things like beyond yourself, right? Like think about effects that like, oh, because a lot of times sometimes people are just like, oh well, what's in it for me? Or like what's a negative here? I just like, you read a book while you were living with me, I think by David Wallace, just called Yes Man.
Yeah, Mike Turian actually recommended to me when I left Wizards. I said, "Hey man, everyone give me a book and I'll read it." And that was Mike.
And like I think that like, you know, writing a book about it just kind of like, you know, well, I got to cash in, right? That
Yeah,
that
yeah.
part that part's kind of gauche, right? And like maybe I don't know what he actually did because I hadn't read the book, but I've always been kind of like at some point in my life I became like really suspicious about like self-promotion, right? And which again plays into the lack of ambition and the lack of like like worldly success, because at some point you got to be like, hey, these are things I'm good at, these are things that I've done, reward me for them, right? But it's
Hmm.
just not the way I like to live. So that's
It
why
taints
like,
it taints the well for sure,
yeah.
right?
But philosophically from a high level I think like saying yes is just like a really good thing, right? And people ask you to do things usually because they want you there, right? Sometimes people ask you to do things because they're like desperate and they just need company, right? But you
Hmm.
know, as players of games, like as you and I, as lifelong players of games, we can like sniff these out like pretty easily, I think.
Yeah,
But by and large, people ask you to do things because they want you around, right? And I think that like you think about um the benefit as a whole, right? Like it is kind of like you're like, oh well, I'd have to
yeah,
like get out of bed, I'd have to do this, and I'd have to go do XYZ, right? Which is kind of like a hassle. But you know, this person would be happier. You would probably be well as an extrovert. It's like easy for me, right?
yeah.
I'm just like, well, even though it is kind of a hassle to go to this thing, when I'm there, I'll have a good time, right? They'll remember that I'm there, and then it's just like better. And I just think like philosophically, um, saying yes to things a lot is just like a better way to live. And I don't know if I would have articulated that had I not seen you reading that book, even though I hadn't read it. And I thought the fact that he wrote a book to cash in and made a movie of it, all right, all seems
Well,
kind of, yeah,
yeah.
it seems
There's
kind
the
of,
good and the
yeah,
bad,
yeah.
double-edged sword.
But the fact that it existed at all has, and the fact that you were reading the book, I think has had unequivocally a positive effect on my life, right?
That's pretty wild.
It's
Yeah.
like it's like these times, and it's folded into like my general life philosophy. I was like, well, you should just say yes to things more, right? I was always like big on doing things anyway, as you knew when I lived in Austin. But this gave it more of a philosophical underpinning, right? It made it where I wasn't just like, you know, well, let's just go out for going out's sake.
Yeah, you kind of want to spend your life like spending time with people you like.
Yeah,
It's like it's funny this project like these calls like it didn't start out with like 58 people watching. It was just like, hey man, I haven't talked to Nate Heiss in a while. Hey man, you want to see what this does? And it's like been the most fun to see and connect with everyone. And it's like it's great to spend time with great people. And you're often like the I don't know if life of the party, but like you light up a room, right? You're definitely like this person that um you're a beloved person on the earth, I feel.
no, I
Whether you
appreciate
like it or
that.
not. I appreciate it too. But yeah, Mike Flores is one of those people I think who cherishes you. He asked me to ask you something. Can I ask you something?
Yes,
What's your ideal job, having been here for 40 some years now?
yeah, it's funny. Like Mark Lepine asked me that once, and the answer that I gave kind of flippantly 15 years ago
Hmm.
was professional dinner guest. Right.
I mean, it's not that crazy. It doesn't
If
sound
I
that
could,
great.
if I
Yeah.
could make like a good living, like being a professional dinner guest, I would love that. Right. I thought
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
Would have things changed a little bit? Maybe a little bit, right? Because I mean, it's almost like an ideal setting for me still. But as I'm getting older, I also want to not. And this is directly contradicting some of the things that I had said before, right? But I don't necessarily want to be in the moment all the time now, right? I want to maybe try to create something.
Mhm.
And you know, I did write 2 award-winning papers in my life, right? So I do have that.
Yeah.
I won an award. I wrote an award-winning short story at university,
Mhm.
and I wrote I helped author an award-winning quantitative research project at SIG. So
Awesome. What's on your bucket list now?
that's the problem about like being like in the moment is I just don't have a bucket list. But at some point,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I arguably came close to kicking the bucket, right?
Right. So being alive is that's on my
Yeah.
list as well.
Yeah, so I should maybe write. I mean, like one thing I am working on I'm writing a. So one thing was I went to a birthday party last year, and I met this couple, Dan and Alexandra, and we were just talking about like indie music shows that we loved and had gone to, right? And they're younger than me, but then she mentioned that her family is from Madison, and that she grew up there, and I was like, oh, that's crazy. I'm going to be in Madison in a couple of weeks. I'm going to this thing called Gamehole Con. And her husband was like, what? I'm going to be there. So's Josh, like this other guy at the party.
That's
Right. And
pretty wild.
we were like, what? So we all just like talked about it. And I got like looped into this like gaming group in New York, right? Through like friends of friends of a friend. And we spent a lot of time up in Madison at Gamehole Con together. And that point, I'm writing an adventure, like a mini campaign for them for the game Tales from the Loop, which is like a kids on bike system.
Mhm.
And I'm actually like, I think it's pretty good. One thing about writing like soft science fiction role playing game adventures that's great is like you don't have to like worry that everything like makes internal sense, right?
Mhm.
You just like you're like, well, the huge scientific facility, it's there's extra dimensional space in it, so you don't have to worry about the maps as much, right? Or why like they didn't find this lab, or like you don't have to like come up with the exact way like cloning technology works or like how time travel works. You know what I mean? You can just kind of like throw it
Yeah.
out there because it's kind of like a Back to the Future, Stranger Things more vibe, like it just kind of happens, and you don't have to worry about like the prose being like pristine or crystalline. You don't have to like you're writing like you don't have to worry about writing great prose because you're basically just writing an instruction booklet and you're writing it for yourself to present these notes to people. But what you're really trying to do is like think about the experience that your players will have and whether they'll have like a good time with this. And I'm having I'm actually really enjoying that component, but like having to like break it down into um 3 real parts and breaking down each part into a 3-act structure so you could run it, right? Because like
Mhm.
you have to try to manage it that way because you're actually doing this. That's because otherwise it becomes too messy, but you don't want it to be railroady at the same time. And at some points I'm not like I feel myself like maybe being pulled into things that don't matter when I'm writing this, and I'm just like, okay, I have to not worry about this.
Yeah.
So, but I'm having a really great time thinking about this, and it's like the smallest amount of like ambition, and it's like the smallest possible stakes, right?
Yeah. I
But
see. Yeah.
no, but I was gonna say, but I think like to the question that Mike asked that you posed to me,
Mhm.
it's and like my semi-serious answer of being a professional dinner guest, it's about like designing an experience for someone, right?
Mhm.
Kind of like curtailing it like specifically to that person's what you think these people would like, right? And I kind of have done that with like the weddings that I've officiated. I think I've officiated like 8 weddings, but I've only done it at specific requests,
Mhm.
right? For specific because like I did it for Tony Sy and Shao, who when they got married, they met through me and they were like, well, let's get Lan to officiate our wedding, right? And
Mhm.
then so I officiated their wedding, and there was a couple of guests in there who said to themselves, if we ever get married, that's the guy, right? So then a few years later they got married, so they just like asked me to officiate their wedding. So I had to like meet with them, interview them, and So I did them, and then I did like Amy and Kevin, who were coworkers of mine that I knew from SIGs. When they got married, I officiated their wedding twice. One because one was like a fake pandemic wedding, and one was like the real post-pandemic ceremony. And then I did it for my brother and his wife. Like they had their wedding in New
Very
York,
cool.
and then my friend Ginger was like, "Well, our friends Chris and D, they're gonna get married. They're gonna elope to New York. They live in the Philippines, and they're
That's
gonna
cool.
elope to New York, and they want to have like a real ceremony, right? Just here, like very intimate, and they want you to officiate that, to officiate their wedding." And I was like, "I don't even know them." So, but
Your legend travels.
yeah, and I had a heart attack actually between the time like they asked and I had the surgery. So it was like the first thing that I did. It was crazy. I actually went to a magic tournament for pre-modern, and then I came home and like 2 days later on a Tuesday I officiated their wedding. And it was pretty stressful for me because I didn't know them really well, and
Hmm.
I only met them at the lunch before, right? But I got enough of a sense of who they were that they really loved it. And I basically just tied it. It was just like once I figured out what to do, it became pretty easy. Like I tied it to Ginger, who organized everything, as well as like my own surgery, right? Not to take things for granted, to appreciate things. So once you figure out where you're going, right, the rest becomes trivial, as they say.
Hmm.
You know, kind
Okay.
of like just having conversations. Like once you get started, it's really easy to keep going. But
My next
yeah.
question is the opposite of that. It's actually so you started. I'm a big fan of people who start communities that endure. Tronster I talked to yesterday, he was one of the four people who started the Baltimore IGDA, and he just is that guy, right? He was always in my life over the last 30 plus years, like the one who was the eye of the storm, making the community go. For Movie Club, do you mind explaining what that is and like why it's endured or what you've learned about like making a great group last?
So you were actually there when I had the idea in Austin, right?
Hmm.
When I originally conceived it. And
Hmm.
then I moved to New York, and I was like, well, that was a good run because we had to have a gathering place. But then John was super. He's like, well, just have it at my place, right? And it's been going every week for almost 17 years now.
Yeah, that's
You know,
crazy.
and the general idea is that uh, you show up as much as you can. Like you have to have good attendance, right? You show up each week and you watch a movie, and if your attendance is good, you get to be on the list of people who show movies. And then when you show a movie, you can't reveal the movie that you're showing till like the moment before the movie is shown. So you get up there, you give a speech, and then you reveal your movie. And this way, people can't just cherry pick, right? You can't be like, oh well, I've seen Top Gun and I didn't like it, so I'm just not going to show up this week. Although sometimes people use like they try to derive the type of movie that people show, right?
Hmm.
From like the history. But it's funny. And then I moved to Philly for work for 6 years, and Movie Club in New York still continued to go on during that time. And someone made the joke. Someone made the joke that they said, "Oh, well, that's good corporate governance." Yeah. But I think the idea of movies are easy, right?
Yeah, 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 they are.
Almost everyone likes movies, and the only investment is just showing up and watching and hanging out. Because John has always been so like generous with like allowing us to like show at his place. But other people have like volunteer, like Fola, has volunteered her place every now and then. Kesselman has shown, has volunteered his place back when they used to attend movie club. And during the pandemic, we did it virtually to kind of keep it going for a couple of years until John moved back because he left town for a while.
Hmm.
But the idea that you don't know what's being shown and that someone is different is showing makes it different from just like, oh, this is a dude showing movies like at a program that's being run at a museum. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
and it gives people like ownership because like, if you show up regularly, right, then you get to participate and you get to show a movie too, and it gives you like ownership in the community. And then so if you just show up, right, if you just say yes all the time, and these other people are saying yes, then you get to be around these people, and then you eventually like hopefully become friends with them. You just interact with them, right? You show up, and then soon, like maybe you're just not watching a movie together. You're going to like a movie festival together. You're going to dinner together, right? Or it's happened before. People from movie club they just took a trip to Paris together. I think like literally
That's wild. Yeah.
Amy was like, "Look, there are cheap tickets to Paris, right? I think tickets were like $94 or something like that. So I think people were just like, holy shit, let's just go to Paris. So then like everyone just coordinated and like, yeah, this is when I was living in Philly. So I was just like, what's going on out there? But a bunch of people just took a trip to Paris together, right? And that's amazing to me. And then people here have died at movie club and people like met and have gotten married, they or they've had kids together. And then we've seen like waves of generations. Like we make that joke, right? We're like, oh, you guys are part of the new generation now. And this has happened like when I first came to New York, and Lauren and John were really like pushing me to start movie club. Part of it was that it was a way for my friends to become friends with my other friends, right? Like I knew a bunch of kids who were like in the fashion world. They were like in like grad school, like at the new school, or they were like at FIT, right? And then you had people like John, who were working in deep finance, right? And they became friends with. It was pretty funny. Like there was these two girls from FIT, Brittany and Andrea. They were literally like freshmen at FIT when I met them. I think they were like 18 or 19 when they first started coming to movie club. But they started calling John Finkel, right? And it really like gave me this nostalgic feeling because that's what we used to call him. Back when we were all, we're like, oh, what's Finkel up to? You know what deck Finkel's on? What's Finkel's record? Even though we all call him John now, but it was really funny to see them like reinvent the wheel, to hear that. I was like, why are they calling him Finkel?
His legend of travels.
Yeah, it's just like, I guess like there's just like history, just like there's no way to avoid it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty neat. It's interesting with John. Like, I feel like I knew him when he was very early. Like, you guys have this memory of like Pro Tour John, and a lot of my memories are like pre-Pro Tour John or like very early. And so it's been really cool to see him grow into who he is. He was always like obviously smart, but
it was really funny to me because like John, Dan, and Dan OMS are just in a group chat together, and we're always like talking to one another. And it's funny to me because we've known each other for almost 30 years now, right? Like I think I met John in person and Dan in person in 97, but I knew them on the IRC in like 96. And but in my mind, I was like the Johnny come lately to the group. I was like the new addition, right? Kind of like what you said, like because I had like the idea of like Pro Tour John and Pro Tour Dan. But really like Dan and John knew each other for maybe like a year or change before like they met me. So it's not even, you know what I mean? Like in percentage terms, it's pretty small, right?
yeah, they played at the same game store, but I don't think they knew each other before. Yeah.
Yeah. But in my mind, like they were already a unit when I met them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
That unit was like big and powerful. It's funny, I haven't talked to like a bunch of the people who were also greats in that time that like you never hear about, right? There were other people who were like
John Kim
also great. Yeah, I mean there was a kid, Ross Sclafani, who was really good. Obviously Aaron Klein and Bachman were really good. But like that New York area had like a ton of talent. There were people that played in the early Pro Tour that did well that we never saw again, that like we'll never know, but like Brian David Marshall can't forget kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Some of them I'm still like Eric Phillips, you remember him?
Right? Yeah, he's later. but he's
Yeah,
off.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So even a little bit later then. So oh, you mean like even before that period?
Yeah, Eric was like a junior kid at that point who like we all liked, but who's gone on to have a great career, I think. But he he was still a junior at that point. There were people
Okay.
who were like obviously wicked smart who were would have been like at like John and Justin's level who like faded out in a year. Um, so it that was an interesting cohort that
This
I
is
can remember. My dad might remember Beth actually. I'm going to talk to him a week from now, so I
yeah,
can make him remember all these New York people.
yeah. Your dad's amazing. So I'm just thinking this is like Aslan in the Chronicles of
Oh
Narnia when
yeah,
he's like, well, this is deeper magic from before the dawn of time.
it's the first men of Game of Thrones. It is always compelling, no matter like the people before us that like somehow, yeah,
Yeah, like they for me, the people before me were the ones whose names I read at the in the duelist sideboard. Because
yeah,
locally, right, like the guys who were legends, um, I became one of the local legends, right? Like it wasn't very
right.
like I won like two Black Lotus tournaments, and I just kind of like became one of the guys playing antes in the back room. We didn't play for beta Lotuses, but we did play for like revised duels.
Hmm.
And there was this one guy, Paxton, who was like renowned for playing like mostly like white weenie, right?
Hmm.
And he asked me, he's like, "Hey, you just want to play for dual lands?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it." And the deck that I played most often at the time was like this Esper Juzam deck, right? It was like controlling elements, but also with like Juzam Jins and Hypnotic Specters, I think. And
Hmm.
I was like, you know what? Something feels kind of like dicey about this. So I just played my Zoo deck, right? It's just like it was like a 4-color deck with Serendib, Ifrits, Urnum Jins, Curd Apes, Birds of
Yeah.
Paradise, but and then lots of burn. I think I played like 8 bolts at least, maybe some Sonic Blast.
Hmm.
And obviously like White Weenie versus bolts, it's just like not it's like nothing.
Mm. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I won like I think 6 straight dual lands off of him.
Jesus.
And but I have to give this guy credit, right, to his integrity. So like after I won like 4 games or whatever, and it's game 5, he's just like he's looking like this, holding his cards. He's like, I keep drawing these, and he shows me like a karma, right, that he had like
Yes.
pre-sideboarded, but because it's like a forecasting cost enchantment, and he's playing against like a super fast tempo deck, with like efficient creatures and bolts. It didn't make sense for him ever to cast it, and but I appreciated the fact that he left them in. Right, it wasn't like he saw them and was just like, "Oh my god, this guy's playing a Curd Ape Serendip
He
deck."
was honest about his like,
Angle shooting.
yeah, wow. I mean, it's someone you want in your army, maybe. Just
Yeah,
not making decisions.
yeah, yeah. Not the guy like the tactician, but the guy who's gonna, you know, maybe he'd be good like ethics instructor at the academy, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a fun story. Yeah, I guess all the people who were extremely aggressive about anti like ended up being extremely good like in tournament play. I don't you played in Houston, right?
Yeah, the Houston area when I was growing
Pasadena?
up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
I mean, like Tim Weissman was from there, and he was like a ranked player. I think in the first Duelist magazine, his name was in there.
mhm.
But I think those early players, just by and large, most of them weren't that good. You know?
Yeah, they figured it out pretty fast.
Yeah.
Who are the best
Um,
people from Tech? Who's in your top 5 from Texas
of all time,
all time that you know?
it's funny. Like they actually like someone did a list of this, uh, and I think I ended up second or third of all time.
Oh, that's nice.
Weirdly, I think the best is probably David Williams,
It's
right?
Dave, yeah.
Yeah, because he has like Pro Tour top eights and a lot of like he had like
He's
a
got he's a Master Chef Finals. Like it's hard to
yeah,
compete with that.
and he
Yeah.
also has like a post. poker player, like post poker success Magic career when he was teaming up with like Paul Rietzel and Matt Sperling, and they were winning like team GPs together, right? And he was like, so I think so. As far as I know, then I think they said it was me. They also mentioned Hubble.
Oh yeah, I forgot that guy.
He ended up qualifying a lot, but then he burned out at every pro tour. But I think he almost top. He may have top aided one eventually, and then but he had like decent pro and Grand Prix level success after the fact.
He was good. He was good.
And then there was Adrian Sayers,
top 8 in Chicago.
Yeah, top 8 in Chicago, and then he it was crazy. Him and Svenspar Geertsen at Pro Tour LA, which was like Triple Invasions draft, were both 9-1, and I think they drew against each other unintentionally, and then they ended up like both like 9-4-1, and neither of them top 8'd. So it was like pretty upsetting for both of them. Like I know Adrian was actually really upset because he was 9-1, then he just went 0-3-1 the rest of the way, and didn't get there. But his name was thrown in. Ty Thomason.
Don't know that one.
He's like a more recent player. He I think won a Grand Prix and has like done really well, mostly at the Grand Prix level. I think he may have had some Pro Tour success, but he has had a lot of vintage, old school, and legacy success.
It's cool.
So one of the, but he's a good guy, and he moved to the East Coast. I was gonna say semi recently, but as you get old, time like compresses. It's actually been like several years. He's been out here now. But he lives in Jersey.
There are people that played like near the Pro Tour or were good but didn't make the Pro Tour that have ended up being really successful in their careers, and that's always cool to see too. Like I remember people from Texas, like I think Aaron Rzepka is working for the NFL doing really cool stuff.
James Stroud.
James, yeah. I mean, it's interesting how like people who were just part of like this cohort ended up it's chicken versus the egg, or chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
Just a lot of really smart people gravitated towards this community. It'll be interesting to see the Magic community today. I haven't been around in a long time, so it'll be interesting to see how the mindset differs, the personality differs, or is it the same? I asked Flores this: if you were yourself, in this modern time, where would you be? Like, where would you be spending your time? It's, you know what I mean? Where's the place to grow?
I think the game would have passed me by because I never really got into online play.
Yeah.
Right. Like I've never played Magic Arena, and I think I've played fewer than 20 matches of Magic Online total. And I think it's impossible to play Magic in the modern world at a high level without really playing Magic Online. But maybe that's not true because I qualified for the Pro Tour in 2016 randomly. It was in Modern, and I was just playing Infect. Like John gave me a list. I was like, "We think this is a really good list," and I was like, "Okay." And it made me. And my philosophy playing that deck was, I don't actually have to know the format that well. I just have to stop them from stopping me, and that's like the mindset that I took into that tournament. And I had 2 buys from like the team events that we had played before. And then I probably lost my first 2 rounds. I was like, well, that's it for me, right? But then I won like 11 straight matches. And I ended up I got 10th, and then they changed the qualification to I think if you get like 13-2, or if you have the same record as like the 8th seed, then you qualified. So I randomly qualified for this tournament, and it was in Sydney, and I was like in between jobs at the time, so I was like, well, it's not really financially responsible to do this.
Mhm.
Even though they bought the plane ticket, just going to spending 2.5 weeks in another country is not going to be easy in the pocketbook.
A lot of meat pies.
Yeah, but I was like, I may never get the opportunity to go to Australia ever again, in my entire life. So I just
Yeah,
took
it's a
it.
cool place.
Yeah, I wish I had done more than just game at the house, right?
Yeah.
But it was still pretty good. But it was good to go. So I guess like, but in by and large, if you want to be like the best in the world, right, at Magic these days, you probably have to play a lot, right? You probably have to play a lot of Magic, and
Yeah,
if you want to play a lot of Magic, you have to play online a lot.
yeah, I think some of the folks I'll talk to down the road are still playing in the tournaments. And so one that's like obviously a hugely a major divergence in like how life played out. But like I would guess like Patrick Chapin, Brian Kibler have like a really good sense of how all the evolutions have happened over time. Um,
Yeah, like Brian just managed to become a professional gamer, right?
it's pretty awesome, right?
Yeah, I guess like he always loved games,
Hmm.
and he just was a game designer for a while, right? And then he became like a commentator slash personality for Hearthstone. Is that right?
Hmm. I think
And
so,
then he
yeah.
just yeah, and then he just created like, and then when Commander came out, he just created like this niche, right? Like, he must be like tremendously successful. Um, because I see every time I see a post of his on Instagram, it's like another fucking advertisement for his next episode.
I struggle to reconcile how is like skinny Brian Kibler, and his brother Jeff. They're both like skinny and young in my memory, and like he's wearing a hat that's backwards, and now he's a lion. He's Aslan or whatnot.
Oh
You're
yeah,
like, how do I reconcile? I
well
know
you
it's the
knew.
same person. Yeah, yeah,
Well, when you were young, he was like a wrestler at school,
yeah. He
right?
was super strong. So like Levy just fought Albert Burkhead at Magic Plus Jiu Jitsu, and I pitched, why not fight Kibler? And uh, Albert said it wouldn't be fair. He would just destroy Kibler. But like Kibler's an elite gamer, really strong, used to be a wrestler. Like, who would you put money on?
Well, it's one of those things where Albert being that confident
Hmm.
makes me think that Albert has to be favored.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
it's just like if he's that confident, right, and you have any respect for his like reasoning at all, then you're like, well, he must know something that I don't know. I don't want to trade against this guy. So this is like the kind of gambler mindset.
Yeah.
Um, I thought about that with regard to when Jake Paul first started fighting. I was like,
Yeah.
who is this guy? And he was fighting against like Nate Robinson, right? I was like, Nate Robinson's a professional athlete,
He's
right?
5'7". Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but still, you're a professional athlete. Like, should he be able to, like, you know what I mean? Like, and this guy's just a guy, right? But instead, like, Jake Paul was just like had trained a lot or whatever, and was just like super big and super strong, and he just knocked Nate Robinson out in one round, right? And we're just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh my god. But just in terms of like Albert being like that confident in this realm
Hmm.
makes me think that you have to put money on him. Right? I don't know what the odds would be, but I guess like if you offered me -700, right? It sounds like an easy buy, right, of Albert there. Um,
Okay.
and I agree. Like Kibler, like is like bigger and stronger, right? And has wrestling training, but I think it's different from
Yeah.
like because one is like formal wrestling, right, versus Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, which is like very close to what like the first like successful MMA fighters did, right? It wasn't like Royce Gracie and those guys were just straight up Brazilian Jiu Jitsu before everything became
It
more
doesn't
like
seem,
fusion.
yeah, like Albert can't find other people to play against. There's like Brian Tinsman because Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is so specialized and it like,
Yeah, but
so it's like, why not just pick something that's more commonly done, right? Like,
why are you looking for this anyway?
it is kind of funny. I like that like Raphael Levy like comes out and he's super talented at this obscure sport. Like I
Yeah.
quite enjoy that, but like pick a different sport each time. Make it like uniquely interesting. Yeah, but
Well, it
they're
would
both yeah.
if I were to design this as a format, there would be three events, one of which would always be Magic, and then the other two would be up for grabs, right? And then you would
Hmm.
randomize them
I
ahead of
love
time.
randomizing. Yeah,
Um, we
I
used to
love
joke,
randomizing it. Yeah,
yeah, we used to joke about this. We called it when I was young. We called it the Magic Triathlon,
yeah.
and it was going to be the three sports were like basketball, Magic, and fighting, right? Just straight up fighting. And there was these two kids who were these twins, just like very like rough around the edges, but they were really big. Tim and
Hmm.
Ted Dickinson.
Hmm.
And then they were like, "Yeah, we'll play this, right? But but fighting comes first."
That's that is smart design on their behalf.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we I used to actually host when we talked about the design of experiences, right? Um, with my when I was living in Austin with my brother and his friends. I think you remember these guys. It was like Andy, Nick,
Hmm.
and those kids. I used to do these like gaming days for them where we would they would compete for like a giant head size Hershey's Kiss, right? And it was like the trophy. And I had like four games that they would play against each other, but the games were all very low skill, and they were just basically like games of chance. And and they would get points based on how they ranked in each one. Like you get like 4 points for finishing first, and 1 point for finishing last. But the games would be like Yahtzee, Texas Hold'em, and Gauntlet, and so on and so forth.
Sounds awesome. Actually.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Although Nick kind of broke Gauntlet because he was just like, oh, he let like the other players um, get hurt first, and then he would stand in the corner so they couldn't progress the board, and then their life would just count down and they would just die. Right? And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yeah, he broke it. Right? It's not really in the spirit of the game, but unfortunately, we didn't like set the rules ahead of time. But but we did like multiple iterations of this, and it was a lot of fun to do. And I think of like kind of similar. We could do this with like some sort of triathlon format, one of which is Magic, but then the Magic format could be like totally random. It would be like Magic Pie Gal, right? Or just something that's like low stakes and fast,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
what do they call like booster wars. You take
Hmm.
like 15 dual lands, right? Oh, not 15 dual lands, 15 lands, and like you open like one or two packs and you shuffle them together and then you play.
Yeah. I always like
Um,
that.
yeah, because like it's at that point it's like less interesting. Like playing Magic well is not that interesting to me these days,
Hmm.
right? But playing Magic in a weird format, in a weird way, is interesting. Or like watching other people play, and that's kind of like was part of the impetus for me building that duplicate seal set. That you I think had the high level conception of 20 years ago or whatever, and then like I landed on you're like, well, if Magic was like a board game, what would it look like?
Yeah. That's what
Yeah,
I want.
and then I built it. I built it. And I built like an easy version too. So like what they call like a bar version. So maybe if you come to New York, I could put this together for you, so you and Micah can play.
That sounds cool. I
You know,
it's yeah, I think they have like the cognitive wherewithal to play.
yeah,
Um they both do. But like, it's what are they drawn to? But I think she in particular uh will be first up. I've
what
I've learned that like if I do the Hobbit too soon, like they're scared and hate the Hobbit forever. If I show them ET at 3 years old, that's probably incorrect. It turns out that was
yeah,
too soon.
yeah. Well,
Uh,
ET himself just looks like is kind of gross and scary looking,
yeah,
right?
I mean, I,
Yeah,
I like ET. I
yeah.
have a
I thought it was okay. Right.
oh, I mean him like specifically as a character. I give him
Oh, as a
a hug,
child,
no
did you
problem.
when you were
Yeah,
three?
yeah.
Yeah,
I
he
he
looks like a
didn't
bug.
he didn't show up until I was 5, I think. So,
Okay.
and we had the Atari game, and that was my favorite Atari game. Even though it was broken and buggy, I still quite loved it. So,
Yeah, that was the game that they overproduced, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was buggy. It didn't work. It was
Well,
overproduced, but like,
I
yeah.
think they produced more copies of the game than there were copies of the console. Right. And then
That's pretty funny.
and the reasoning was that people would love the game so much they would want to take it with them to like their aunt's house or whatever, who also
We
had it.
all we all have
And,
dreams.
yeah, and I think that yeah, I don't want to be if this is the game that I'm thinking of. I think they produced so many that they eventually had to bury them in a landfill in the desert.
I think
So
that is I think that is true.
okay, so it is the ET game. Awesome.
What's your favorite Magic epoch?
Probably. I mean, like I mean, it's kind of selfish to say, right? Because
Hmm.
like we want to be drawn to the one that like we're like I'm drawn I'm drawn to this era, and I wonder if I'm drawn to it because I had the most success during that era, right?
Yeah, it certainly helps.
Right. But I certainly liked late 90s
Yeah.
post ban Magic. So like
Hmm.
the Pro Tour that I got 12th at when I played the Tinker deck, I thought it was like a great format, and I think it was shown out to be great because there were 8 different decks in the top 8.
It was wonderful. Yeah.
Right. So good, right? It was you had what Tutor Oath, like Dr. Ped Bun Oath, and then you had Blue Green Oath, and
Mm-hmm.
then you had Counter Slivers, then you had
Thinker.
Drago, yeah, Tinker.
Hmm.
So that's 5. Then you had Necro Pebbles, right? Fruity Pebbles.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's 6. And you had decks that were viable that didn't make the top 8, right? Like Trade Deuce, right?
Hmm.
Stompy. Um, uh, White Weenie. People played White Weenie. I don't think it was that good. Man, what were
I
the?
can't imagine playing that against Oath or whatnot. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah,
awful.
yeah, yeah, yeah. What were the last? Oh, Hatred was good. Oh, you had Free Spell Necro, right? That Brian Davis got second with, and then Chapin got 11th with. And then Hatred, like Worth Wolper got 14th with Hatred there, but he didn't make top
Hmm.
8 with it. So man, I wish I remember what the last deck was. I don't know why I worry so much about this kind of thing. Right? It makes me think that I'm secretly or to a small amount OCD,
Hmm.
and I don't think I am. But the fact that I just need to know what the 8th deck was. Oh, it was actually Raphael Levy on Blue Green Survival. That was the other
Okay,
deck.
that's pretty cool. I mean,
So
I knew Bob's. And
yeah,
I knew Tinker because we were the other Tinker deck, right? There were two Tinker
yeah.
decks that were vying for the top.
Yeah,
And
this was Alan Comer made
yeah.
top 8 with the other Tinker deck. Yeah, so Brian Davis got second, right, and then
Hmm.
uh, Dirk Boborowski on the Blue Green Oath, uh, which was like one of my favorites. That was another one of my favorite Magic stories, like Peter Radnich. So I lose to Hector Fuentes, who makes top 8, right, and he's
Hmm.
on the Drago deck. And at this point, I'm 9-4, so I'm out of top 8 contention, and I get paired against Peter Radnich, right, who is also out of contention. And I was like,
Hmm.
you know what? At this point, I don't really care about Magic. If you want to draw, I'll draw with you. And
Hmm.
he says, well, I think I'm quite favored against you in this matchup, so let's play it out. And I'm like,
Pete.
I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And then I get turn 1 processor to 7,
Yeah.
right? So I just start cranking out these 7/7s, and then I win, right? And then he goes, well, you still want to draw? And I go, well, let's just play it out and see what happens.
Yeah, I
And then,
actually asked Radonich to come on here because I don't know him that well, but like his stories have to be interesting, right?
yeah. So in game 2, I just get turn 1 Helix, right? So I just Helix lock him. And then, the game's trivial. So I was like, well, good match. Good match.
He got what he deserved. He
Yeah.
got what he deserved.
He was like the evil kid in Search for Bobby Fischer who turns down the draw.
Oh, but he's good at heart, right?
Yeah, the one who's just like, you've got to be kidding me. Have you looked at the board?
Ah,
So,
yes. I'm going to send this clip to him right after this, just so that.
well, you can also send the other one too, where because he was on the other team that lost to Ni Feng and Sayers.
I mean, these are all great
Yeah.
fuel for the fire. Yeah, I'm kind of curious what you would do at Magic today. You're the boss. What do you do?
Oh, well, I certainly. Well, the problem is, so here's the problem, and this is kind of like my real problem with late stage capitalism. And I'm sorry to offend all the everyone who's listening in who just sucks at the teat of mammon, right? Just loves making as much money and increasing suffering as much as possible. But part of like what's the problem with capitalism is like the stock market itself. And the incentives of the stock market is that when you invest in a company by buying the shares of that stock, what you're hoping for is for that stock to go up, right?
Hmm.
So what that means is you're investing in growth. And then if a company just straight up makes like $3 billion a year and in revenue, or not in revenue, let's say profit, right? Let's say it's more than 3 billion. Let's say it's like 300 billion, right, in profit.
Yeah,
Just some
a lot of
kind of
billions.
outrageous
Yeah.
number, yeah.
Hmm.
But they make 300 billion a year, and that's it, right? That just means that the stock should be like fairly priced, right? So when you buy a stock that's fairly priced, it means it's not going to go up, right? So it means that like if you're making 300 billion this year, you need to be making like 340 billion next year, like 13% year over year growth or whatever. And
Hmm.
all of a sudden, like your incentives are crazy, and then you're just doing insane things like what Jack Welch, excuse me, Jack Welch did with like GE when he was just like, well, we've got to cook the books in some way, right? We have to, in order to like show this kind of profit, we have to acquire other companies and then write that as like profit, right? And so on and so forth. We can move our losses to the company that we bought, and then so you see this, right, where you have companies like Meta and Alphabet that are just
Hmm.
like these giant companies who are making so much money, but they have to have this growth, right? And this growth can't be sustained. And it's like, in nature, it's not sustainable. That's literally what a cancer is, right? It's just like growth
Yeah,
that's just like out of
I
control.
feel that term often with
Right.
AI and so many things we don't need. Yeah.
So and I know that Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro is not on this level, right? But they have a profitable company. Let's say they're making like $500 million a year, right? Well, that's
Hmm.
not enough, right? Because if they made 200 million last year, they have to be making 240 million this year, 20% year over year growth, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And then how do they do that? Well, they do that by raising prices, by producing more sets, right? Just like jamming out, right? These things, and then even
Testing demand to see if it's
but it's
inelastic,
but it's
right?
also insane,
Yeah.
like another thing like that they did, right? Like so the idea that modern and legacy were supposedly like these formats that like let you use these old cards that you had that you couldn't use anymore, right? And they were really
Hmm.
successful because of that. People were like, "Oh, it's awesome, right? I got to play Snapcaster Mage in standard, and then it rotated out, and it's probably a little too strong to ever reprint again, but it's a fun card that's strong, and I get to reuse it now in these legacy formats, these eternal formats, right?"
Hmm.
And then Wizard, and so you had like these robust formats that were very popular. They were selling out. They had like huge attendance at like Star City events, right? And then you had this huge secondary market as a result, right? Where people were like,
Hmm.
"Oh, in order to play these old formats, we have to invest in these old cards that Wizards that aren't in print anymore." And then Wizards was just like, "Well, how do we get a piece of that pie? We could print directly to these formats with like the creation of Modern Horizons, right?
Yeah.
Which ruined these formats, right? Like I think they said that Legacy basically became Modern Horizons 3 block constructed, is what people were saying.
Yeah.
And it really like for me it was like a lot of fun to because I was playing a non-trivial amount of Magic these days. I was going to like FNM, because I was just like, oh well, I have these cards, right? There's a store that's pretty close by. I could like see some friends there. I could just play Magic, right? It's not a big deal, and I could play like in these like modern events or whatever because it's a fun format. But and then so like you know you had a lot of these cards from when they were in standard, but then these new decks archetypes would get invented, right? And then you would just kind of go and invest in these decks. So all of a sudden you would have like 8 or 10 decks, right? But then like when Wizards printed Modern Horizons, printed straight to Modern Horizons, a lot of these decks just immediately got invalidated, right?
Yeah.
And kind of like what we were talking about earlier about how people made emotional investments in these decks. It's not just Commander and it's not just like Merfolk, but like people would go, like they would be like, oh, I'm a Tron guy or I'm a Jund guy, I'm a Humans guy, and all of a sudden these decks were no longer playable because like you have these decks, these cards that were printed in like these new sets, such that like they were too powerful, and you had these entire new archetypes that got basically developed, but these archetypes were based on these new cards. It makes people kind of resentful of Magic, right?
Yeah, distrust it, right?
Yeah, especially like I at one point I was just the straw that broke the camel's back for me was they printed a bunch of these cards and they were just too strong and they immediately banned them in Standard. And they got like I think Field of the Dead got banned the day before the cards arrived in the mail for me.
Yeah, it's changed quite a bit, right? I mean,
Yeah,
in some ways that's good. In some ways it's like you have to care an awful lot and keep up with things an awful lot
but
to be able to play it in a serious way.
because for me, because like I don't care about market incentives, right?
Hmm.
Let's say like the game made 200 million a year or whatever number. I don't know what the right number, the true number is, right? But it made enough such that you could support a healthy infrastructure, right? Where you could support like a tournament scene. You could pay people to work on the game, like in design and development, right? And to have them like make a good living doing this, right? Like they wouldn't
Hmm.
become like they wouldn't be like finance bros, but they would make like you could buy a house, right, and support a family, like type living, right? And I don't want to sound like a Bernie Sanders, you know, factory worker nostalgia, but kind of like Bernie Sanders factory worker nostalgia here, but for game designers, right? You can support that kind of environment, right? And you wouldn't have to like try to make each set sell more than the last set, because you could work on designing things that were just platonically good, like idealistically good. That's what I would kind of want from Magic, right?
Yeah, sure.
And then you could drive growth, but the growth would be like organic, right? I know like it was funny, like Aaron Forsyth years ago, because like I was like I had publicly vocalized that power creep was like upsetting to me, And he was like, "Well, what about Mercadian Masks? Mercadian Masks, is that what you want, right? You want power level like Mercadian Masks?" And I was like, "Mercadian Masks is fine to me, right?" I was just a guy who loved Magic, and I would play whatever slot they put in front of me.
I accidentally told the person who was responsible for Mercadian Mass that I really didn't like it
Yeah,
on one of these calls, and
yeah. It's not a
it's
particularly
it's not my favorite. Yeah,
well, it's just not an interesting set, right? But that's the thing. It's just
any
like
aspect of it. Yeah.
right, and then like some parts were just like overpowered. Some parts within the underpowered environment that it was, like Rebels was just like too strong
Hmm.
and obvious, for example. But um, it's just one of those things where like it's just what it is. So for me, Magic was it was just one of those things, right? It wasn't great, but it was still Magic. And then there would be another set that would come out within a year. And
Hmm.
I was a pro player, so I just had to play it, right? So I was just playing whatever slop they put in front of me. Um, but what's that?
Yeah.
But it's like the old saying: the only thing worse than playing Mercadian Masks is not playing, is not playing Magic at all, right?
Yeah.
Like you still got to play a game, you still got to hang out with your best friends, right? Assuming like you know, you
It was
like the people you
okay.
play. Yeah, for
Yeah,
me,
it was
like Magic
okay.
was at its heart very social, right?
Hmm. Yeah, me
And
too.
and like Ben Rubin and you and I have said it's just that like you know the game had like such a profound influence on our lives that like playing the game itself wasn't as interesting to me as like being part of it, right? And that's why like playing Magic Online is not interesting to me,
I can't imagine it.
right? And then so
Yeah.
like I said, playing Mercadian Masks, Mercadian Masks, is not a great set, but I think that
It's your favorite epoch of Magic, Mercadian Masks. No, I'm just kidding.
no, but it's in that era. But I just think that like now that you can't like play Magic, you can't print new cards without like you're like, oh well, what's the right casting cost for a good what's the right abilities for a good one casting cost creature now? And you're like, well, I guess it has to have like 3 power, right? Maybe if it has 3 power and flying, it's interesting. We're just like, whoa, that's like a 4 it used to be a 4 casting cost card.
Yeah, the
Right?
game will end very quickly and there won't be any decisions. And most people will be happy with that. It's a different customer they're catering to, right?
Yeah, what I've always said is that if, and I don't want fucking Chris Cox to hear this, right? Chris Cox or like David Wizards to hear what I'm about to say. But if they never printed another Magic card ever again, I would still be extremely happy with what Magic has given me and what I could do with Magic, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like when I put together the duplicate sealed set, like the real one with the 2 sets, the power level is such that Fact or Fiction is a very strong card, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a power level that I like.
Mm-hmm.
And the games have been like super interesting, and it's like I designed it in such a way that I didn't think it would be solved, right? And if someone proved me wrong and did solve it, it's easy. You just tweak it, take out some cards, right? Put in other cards. But that's what I would like. I would like there to be no obvious deck. I would like mono red to be a tier 1 deck.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think like you want to have a boogeyman out there, right? So such that like you can't just play like infinitely dirtily control, right? So there has to be a spectrum where you're kind of gambling on the meta, right?
Sure.
To some degree. I would like there to be combo that exists, but the combo can't be too easy, and it can't be too easily integrated into other decks, right? It has to be kind of like a Prost Bloom type deck, right? Where you're just like, well, I'm playing a combo deck. This is what I'm doing, right? Versus you playing like a white weenie deck that just happens to have like an auto win in it, like and to me that kind of like represents like almost like an ideal form of Magic, right? I know like Planeswalkers were invented under your watch, but I didn't love them.
They were in Future Sight. They were the last set one of the last sets that I was working on, and then I think they got punted out and moved into Lorwyn. And Lorwyn was I never worked on it in house. I was at Mark Rosewater's house with Aaron and I think Paul Sotosanti or Devin Lowe, maybe both, and we were talking about how to jazz up that design before I headed out. And that was my last Magic conversation even.
I remember you told me that the original design for Planeswalkers was that they were originally like fortifications or buildings.
Oh no, I think that was separate. Like the original design is similar to what they were now.
Okay.
But like fortifications were something that I think Aaron in particular was interested in. I don't know if they ever did it. Did they do it?
Okay, I thought maybe I misunderstood our conversation because I thought that you said that they were originally going to be like castles or whatever or buildings.
I like that idea. No, I think that we were testing both in that like time frame to see if we liked them, and I think the creative team in particular really wanted to have characters that you latched onto because it was an impossible IP to create any value from if you didn't do that. So it was like, that's cool.
Yeah, I hate Magic IP. I'm just gonna be on the record saying that, right? I think it's stupid.
UB for life. Yeah.
Yeah, when people are like making fun of Universes Beyond, they're like, oh, well, you've got like Spider-Man fighting Bilbo here. How stupid is that? And I was like, well, you fucking got Gerard Capuchan like fighting
Aladdin
and Weatherlight looking for Volrath. That's not very interesting, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like for me, like when I first saw Magic, it had this like generic but implicit rather than explicit like fantasy world, because like the idea was that you were on these like different planes of existence. You're like, what is Benalia? Why is a hero only 1/1, right? And all these things. And I would read all of the flavor text, and they would just kind of hint at this like giant world. But at some point, I guess in the effort to create IP, they basically like, and the art changed because the original art was like much more like abstract and kind of weird looking.
Yeah.
And then the art became more like fantasy novel art, fantasy novel cover art is how I described it.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of coincided with the rise of planeswalkers and the rise of characters.
It's more serious.
Yeah, but it's also become like way more successful as a result because people form like emotional relationships with Chandra, with Liliana, with Nissa, with maybe not Johnny, maybe Johnny, I don't know, but Jace, right? I know like Patrick made like a Jace rap song.
He did. He has an album. Does he?
At some point, what hasn't he done with regard to Magic?
I don't know. I am excited to chat with him again. He's had a pretty awesome run of life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's like maybe sui generis, right? He's like the most Magic person throughout the history of Magic, right? The one who's just been like so like deeply involved, and he just thought like, do you remember like when we were on the Pro Tour when he was young, he like created his own set, right?
Yeah,
and we would draft with it, and it was just literally like a 300 card set or whatever, and it was just all custom.
it's pretty wild. Yeah, I got to work with him at Wizards for a while, and
but I just mean like he's like the one who he's always trying to build new decks, build new formats, build new cards, like write books about Magic, make songs about Magic, just do all sorts of like weird things.
I didn't know about the song. That's going to be a question I have to ask him now.
Yeah.
And like go ahead.
I want to say that I'm like, I want to be like 95 bid. Like I'm certain that he did this, but I don't want to be 100% sure.
Yeah. Okay. There's no pressure. Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask you if you wanted to create like a mix CD for 12 songs that you want everyone who listens to this to listen to, what would it be? And now I feel like one of them is taken, like one of those.
Oh, no. Well, it's different. Like, it's funny because I actually just watched High Fidelity last week. Again.
It's a powerful movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that movie is just like aged like unbelievably well. Some people like, I read comments and people are upset at the movie. They're like, well, he's a self-centered bozo.
It's hard to like. Yeah.
Well, I go, well, that's the point of the movie because at the end he achieves personal growth. It's called character arc, right?
Yeah.
If you had gotten to the last 15 minutes of the movie, right, maybe you would have understood that. But he actually gives the advice in the movie about making mixtapes is actually outstanding. So if I had to make a mixtape for people to listen to, it would be, I would want it to be kind of edifying in that I would want to introduce people to music that I thought that they should know, or that I think that their lives would be better if they knew it. But it would also be reflective of me to some degree, right? But then it would kind of violate some of the rules of mixtape making because of my own disparate interests. It would have to like mix genres in such a way that could possibly be uncomfortable to a listener, right? Where you would have, like modern R&B and rap, and then you would have like 60s rock or whatever, right? And indie rock in the 80s. But maybe I could figure it out. But I have been discovering some new artists recently that really gained my attention. But these are not new. These are just artists that are new to me, right? Like I saw Herbie Hancock last year, or a few months ago, in Jersey, and I always kind of like shied away from him because I didn't really care for fusion jazz, right? Like, but he did a lot of stuff with like modal jazz in like the 60s. He played with like Miles Davis, but his album, I think Maiden Voyage, was just like, it was like mind blowing. And then I discovered a couple of pianists that I didn't know, but were widely considered among like the greatest pianists of the 20th century. Arturo Benedetti Angelini, who has like a very like tight repertoire, like a very like constrained repertoire, but he was playing Brahms and Chopin, and it was just like mind blowing listening to him. And then Martha, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, Agarich, like the Argentine pianist. Like
Okay.
she's routinely on the list of like greatest pianists of the 20th century. She's like a virtuoso. And I was listening to her play Tchaikovsky's Piano Concerto Number 1 and Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto Number 3 yesterday, and it was just like mind blowing how good she was. But it was funny because it made me think about one of my other favorite pianists, Mitsuko Yoshida, who is like considered to be the foremost Mozart interpreter of the 20th century. She plays like Mozart, Schubert, and also like specializes in the Second Viennese School.
Mhm.
And they're basically like the opposite, but they're held like in the same esteem, like way up here. But Martha Agarich seems to be like just like a virtuoso who plays with like a ton of emotion and power. It's just like vibrancy, right? Whereas Yoshida is very like intellectual and elegant, and cerebral, and she like supposedly like dissects the music down to its core. But it's funny because like she in an interview she mentioned that she started playing Mozart because she noticed that no one else was playing Mozart. So she's like, oh, well, there's space for me here. So it reeked of like career opportunism, but I don't think that's possibly true because she's so fucking good at it, right? Like you can't like be that good, without loving it and devote your entire life to something, right? At that
Yeah, yeah.
level, right? Without loving it. Like as much as we talk about, oh well, Magic was a phase of my life. I don't play Magic anymore. It's clear that Magic has like this deep rooted connection for us. It not just an influence on our lives, but we love it. We still love it. I think, and I tell people I still think it's the best game ever invented, right?
Yeah,
Despite
yeah.
mainly because it contains multitudes of games. I try to explain to people that playing blue white versus mono red is an entirely different game from playing blue white versus like blue black, right? These are look at it's under the same like framework, but they're two different games. And then playing like standard in 2023 is different from playing standard or extended in like 1999. These are entirely different games, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
But they
yeah.
all use the same framework. So
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's true. Whenever I see a card show up on like a feed and I'm like, I haven't seen it in 30 years, I'm like, oh, you're an old friend, right? Like Scrubland. I didn't know that I
my
had
my
such a
home,
connection.
where I belong.
Yeah, Taiga, it doesn't matter which one it is. You like
Oh,
them all, right? You're like,
I
ah.
just meant because it was the land of scrubs.
Ooh.
That
Yeah, no, what's your color? What is your casting cost?
oh, my casting cost?
Yeah, you're different than everyone else.
Yeah, I guess like if I would be 2 Azorius hybrid mana
Hmm.
and 1 Demir hybrid mana.
Okay. So white, black, blue vibe.
Yeah, but you could cast me with triple blue, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you couldn't cast me with triple white or triple black. And you can't spend more than 1 black mana to cast me.
Okay. That's kind
Right?
of cool. Yeah, that I like that. I like that. That's a good cost.
Yeah. And
Ye-
you'll notice, right, how fast I made that decision. So that put that in my interview.
For sure.
Right.
Yes. I think the interview will be the entirety. of I can't wait for everyone to see the
Yeah.
time duration. You're actually now first, like the longest had been Albert Burkhead, which also was the most listened to. Like it's
Yeah.
been listened to a lot. So um
Well,
it's
I
worth
can't
it.
wait to get my 2 listens, right? Both from me. Right. It's just I have like it playing on 2 different computers, right? So,
I can't handle it. No, I mean a lot of people will hear some portion of
yeah.
this. Like tens of thousands of people will hear some portion of this, I believe. And those who make it to the end deserve some sort of Easter egg that they wouldn't have
Oh,
heard otherwise. Like, how do you want to end this? Because
Oh yeah, I do
You
have to
have
go to rehab
all.
pretty soon.
Oh yeah. You should
Yeah, but
probably make sure you do that.
yeah, I have enough time to like make a small meal and then head out there. Okay, how do you want to end it? Right?
That's a good question. I certainly will thank you for being a good friend all these years. Thank you.
Yeah. I,
um, yeah,
I did have the distinction of being the only non-family member present at both of your weddings.
yeah, that is true. I
So
think
I definitely like felt very.
Tronster was invited, but like
Yeah.
he is not at fault for not coming. Yeah,
Isn't he?
yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I you will like be right after him. So sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
Tronster.
Yeah,
But that
well,
that is true.
yeah, but he was. I mean, I love Tronster a lot when I met him at your wedding,
Hmm.
and I even remember his email address was tronster123 at Hotmail, and I wrote him, and he just like never responded, and I was like,
That sounds not likely. He probably,
yeah,
if you did, he would have record of it. I've learned.
yeah,
But he seems like someone who would definitely respond.
yeah. I thought so too, but maybe like it got to spam folder or something.
Yeah,
But but also I just remember like there was that one part where we were walking, and I gave you 3 coffee table books
oh yeah,
as a present for that wedding.
yeah.
And then I was carrying them, and he just ran up and swooped by and picked them up, right, and just carried them for me because he was like stronger than I was. And I just remember that's the type of person he was. Whereas another member of your wedding party
That's not,
borrowed money from your wife and never paid it back because
it doesn't feel good.
yeah,
Yeah,
because he was stuck because he lost all his money playing poker and borrowed like $300 and then never paid that back. So those are like the two poles, right?
hard to forget. Yeah,
Yeah, Tronster and then this other person.
not to be mentioned. Like the yeah, I think I haven't asked Kate if she wants to come on here, but she might. I think she might. We've been pretty friendly since that point. And
Yeah,
she's had her own cool game making career, which is kind of the other side of what this is all about. So I think she'd be a neat person to have on. But
yeah. I didn't realize that she was married to Patrick Sullivan. Right,
mm,
that was the next person, and I was like, because I'm like pretty good friends with Patrick Sullivan these days.
yeah, it's fun,
Yeah,
smart guy.
yeah, but I was just like, oh, that's the guy.
It's
Yeah.
pretty weird. Like you're like
Well,
these. None of these things make sense.
because
The current situation makes sense. I think
I was
actually.
so removed from the magic world at that time. I was living in Austin with you for part of the time, but I was just going to shows all the time, and I was just like learning about like things I wanted to learn about. Right, like I
Yep.
felt like um, magic just like wasn't very interesting to me at that time. So, and like I don't. I always felt that magic would always be there too. Right, and it kind
And it
of has
still
been.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still there when you need it.
I'm not even playing. I haven't played new Magic in years, but I still play like weird old formats and then like occasional drafts and then duplicate sealed. So I play pre-modern sometimes. So I know pre-modern and Pauper are giant in New York. So
Yeah, I played Dad tonight like 3 or 4 weeks back, and like fun for me.
it is crazy. Like I will
Yeah.
say real quick, like when I started work at the company I started at, there was like this guy who's really excited that I played Magic, right?
Oh, poor guy.
Yeah, and like the company I work at a par, we had some like actual all timers. I think I probably have the third best career at the
Hmm.
company, like
Wow.
Martell and Matt Sperling, right?
Hmm.
Who have like extremely storied careers. But this
Hmm.
guy was like, "Oh, you play Magic? Do you have a modern deck?" And I was like, "I have some modern decks." He's like, "Wait, why don't you bring him in? We can play." And he like brought his decks in, right? And
Hmm.
I just brought in like pretty generic, but like tournament viable decks. I brought in like Tron, I think Death Shadow, and maybe like white blue control or something like that. And then this was a guy, he had a white black life gain deck, right? That's the type of access he was on, with 20 lands, 40 spells, and you would cast like a 1/1 flyer with lifelink for 2 mana. And he would kind of get mana screwed, but I would also just like
Like, what do you do in that case? You just beat him, but like try to be as gracious as possible about it.
I just like I just beat him, and I just like, but I just played my cards as I drew them. But at some point, right, this is like when I lost a lot of respect for him because he was just like, "Is your deck doing what you want it to do?" Right?
Oh no.
As if like the reason he was losing was because of some like mechanical failure, And
Hmm.
I was just like, look, I didn't want to say this, right? In my mind, but I was just like, look, given like the cards I've seen, you could order your deck however you wanted, right?
Oh no.
And you would never win a game. But you know what I mean? Where it's just like
Yeah.
I could mulligan to 5 every game, right? And then he's just like drawing these cards that are worth like a third of a card or less, right? Like, right, if he's just
Poor
tapping
guy.
out, he's just casting some like 2/2 extort guy or whatever, extort guy. I'm just like, all right, like it's just like you just spent 3 mana to throw a card in the garbage. So
I can't take it.
yeah, but that's just like it is true when you watch people who and like I'm hardly like the best Magic player in the world right now, right? But like when you watch people like the levels that we played at, and you compare
Yeah.
them with like people who just play like casually or they win like their local games or whatever, there's just like such a huge gulf. But you actually see this in the duplicate sealed because I think that's a distillation of like pure Magic. It's kind of like Solomon draft, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where you go and you see some people, and some people they go and they'll like absorb the whole space, and they're like, okay, if these are the cards that are available, here are like potential like archetypes. So here's what you have to build around, right? But then some people are just like, oh shit, I could build a red green deck, And
Yeah.
that's what they do. And then the people in the first camp invariably do way better than the people in the second camp. But I do think about Magic in terms of that kind of like purity of the game, right? A fundamental Magic skill rather than like format specialist or whatever. So that's
Yeah. I mean, it's the
like
only way
Fisher.
to
Yeah,
play.
Fisher
Right.
chess, like 960, Fisher chess 960 or 960 chess, whatever you call it. It's like the way I like to think about these things.
Right on. Well, I will let you know when we're headed to New York.
Yeah, I would love to see you. I would love to see. Is it just you and Micah that would be going, or
They're all going to be there.
okay? I don't. I guess I would like to see everyone. Right.
Yeah, if you want to like separate, no, I think it'll be a good group. I think we're gonna try to catch Alex Schwartzman too. Probably anyone who's up there. We'll just try to catch while we're there.
Oh, can I tell a quick story about Kingsgate? So my brother came to visit me once, and there was like a PTQ. This was around like 2013 or whatever.
Hmm.
There's like a PTQ at Alex's store, and this is like when Magic was like I guess like pretty popular, and his store isn't huge. So sometimes there'd be like overage, right? There'd be too many people at his store, and then people would be like, "Well, there's not enough room to play here," and he would be like, "Go play at the McDonald's." People would go have to play their matches at the McDonald's, and the people at McDonald's are like, "What are you doing? You got to get out of here, right?" And they would come back, and they're like, "Alex, they kicked us out." He'd be like,
Oh
"Well, go
no!
back and try again."
Oh no!
I was like, "What?" But so my brother went and played in this PTQ there, and he he lost the first round, so he had to go play in the basement, right? So he sits down and plays in the basement, and he's like against the wall, and there's just this. He looks over, there's just like a giant centipede on the
Oh
wall next to
no!
his face, and my brother's just like, ah! He's like, you know what? I'm just gonna drop.
I I have never been to this place,
I
but
mean,
New
you
York
know,
is New York.
yeah, this was like 13 years ago now. If the shop still exists, right?
It does. It does.
Hopefully,
Yeah,
okay.
it does.
Uh, it probably these things happen in the past. That's all I'll say, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
and it's not necessarily indicative of how things are right now. So
I think
this
that's a good say. We are pro Alex and pro Kings games. We are not
huge fan
trying.
of both. Huge fan of
Yeah.
you. Thank you for having me on. And 3 hours and 40 minutes. It felt like 3 hours and 30 minutes. That's how
Yeah.
fast things went. So
I wonder if I'm supposed to cut it into 2 episodes, but also I can't have any more thoughts. So
well, you're the marketing genius. So
yeah, yeah. Thank you for that compliment.
I'll talk
All right,
I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for everything.
live your life. You too.
Bye, Brian.